Right. Good morning and welcome to our 90-day rollout cycle for the Estacada School District. I do want to take a moment just to say thank you to the leaders inside the Estacada School District who are here today representing our great school district of 750 square miles. And I can't wait for each leader inside our school district to share our 12-month journey together as we try to make the Estacada School District a best place environment. I also want to thank our school board members, many of whom are watching live on YouTube this morning. I want to thank them for their commitment and dedication. And if you're joining us live on YouTube this morning, I also want to say welcome and thank you for joining us. We are making the end of our Year 3 strategic plan rollout public for all to view in an effort to be transparent and to model transparency, to report to the Estacada community its school district's progress toward the strategic plan, and also to allow the community to hold us accountable for the outcomes inside the strategic plan and our outcomes of the 2021 school year. Now, before we get started, I do want to just say publicly, both on camera and for our group today, we are indoors, therefore the indoor mask mandate is required. However, it's important to note that in the most recent governor's orders, face coverings are required in all indoor settings, but does not apply for individuals who are actively eating, drinking, or sleeping, or individuals delivering a speech or performance. And so if the camera happens to catch a few people who are eating or some of our presenters choose to take off their masks, they are in fact in compliance with the governor's orders. So last year, inside the Estacada School District and across the country, it was a challenging year in many regards. The Estacada School District conducted operations through many crises, including a pandemic, which has impacted the entire country, a wildfire, which evacuated all 750 square miles of our school district for 7 days and more, and an ice storm that left thousands of people without power for 7 days and more. I want to say thank you to the community and families and students and staff because we worked hard together to put a quality product to educate Estacada's children in very challenging times. I would like to first start out by thanking the Estacada Executive School Board of Directors who throughout this pandemic have listened to their community, reflected its values, and empowered their leadership team to execute the mission, vision, and values of our strategic plan. As I have often said, regardless of any worldly circumstances, scenarios, and crises, the expectations to educate Estacada's children at high levels remains the same. The community hired us to educate their children, and nothing should ever stand in our way of accomplishing that calling. We are professional educators, and we should take that seriously. Our commitment to that duty should never waver. The Estacada School District was fortunate to have a strategic plan which served as our compass during these crises. This and a shared commitment to building a culture of excellence allowed our organization to stay firmly planted on our mission, vision, and values while the world changed around us. The Estacada School District's mission is to equip all students with the knowledge and skills necessary to be resourceful and successful. Our vision is by the year 2030, which will be here before we know it, to be considered a premier school district inside the state of Oregon. And our values are to inspire, engage, and achieve. We're doing this with an introduction of our new standards of excellence, which is heavily focused on aligned behaviors with collaboration, respect for each other, a consistent approach to aligned educational access, innovation, empathy, and perseverance. Last year, we completed year 3 of 5 in our strategic plan, and we remain grounded in our pursuit for excellence, one person at a time. Certainly, this has come true as we have worked hard to serve all of our students with different modes of instruction last year. We continue to strive to be a district of choice for our community and for our employees across the region. So last year, like I said, we finished year 3 of 5 of our strategic plan. This document was co-created and co-owned by our community, our parents, and our employees. These are the 5 core pillars inside our strategic plan, which focus on successful students, a strong, inclusive, and collaborative culture, engaging families and community, up-to-date buildings and facilities, and sustainable finances and accountability. These are the 5 pillars that guide us. The triple aim of improvement in our district stems from improvement science used in healthcare. There are many school districts across the country that are making this shift in education. The Estacada School District is committed to incorporating an evidence-based approach to leading change in our local schools, at the state level, and across the United States as we develop into a model school district for this work. In our big aims, student achievement is at the forefront. Are our students ready for college, career, military service, or just the next level of their educational journey? Our school district is heavily focused on engagement, student engagement, employee engagement, parent engagement are core measures that we value, and we want to be the best place for teachers to teach, for students to learn, for employees to work, and for parents to send their children. We are developing a culture for improvement, and all of our teams are working incredibly hard to make our conditions better and outcomes better for our students. In order to do this effectively, we have to be mindful and constantly measure our systems in action. The essence of improvement science guides our work every day. In order to accomplish this, we have to establish clear goals that align with our purpose, that mission, vision, and values that I'm speaking about, that everyone across the organization understands where they fit in the organization, what they need to do to be successful, and what steps they can take to be better each day. We have clear purposes so people know what is expected of them, so that we can operate as effectively and efficiently as possible to make the best use of the time, energy, and money that we have. A student's success should not be dependent on which teacher they are assigned or which elementary school they attend. Our teachers should be using common curriculum, common best instructional practices, and common measurements to ensure all of our students are engaged in their learning. And during this life of the strategic plan, we have been incredibly successful. In 2020, the Estacada School District was named a Model PLC School District by Solution Tree, a national education recognized company. For 2 consecutive years now, the employees of the Estacada School District has ranked it a top workplace in the state of Oregon, a very high honor empowered by its employees. In 2020, Estacada High School was ranked a top high school in the nation by U.S. News and World Reports. Our transportation and nutrition teams were recognized nationally for their heroic work during the beginning of the pandemic and the wildfire. The Estacada School District improvement has been featured in national journals and books. And leaders inside our school district, many of whom you'll hear from today, have spoken on the state and national stages in representation of the great work occurring in the Estacada School District. These tremendous premier accomplishments are thanks to the school board, a very talented team of leaders at both the district and building levels, and each employee who is making a difference each day in the quality services we are offering to our community. We want to be that school district of choice. And as we start to narrow down, we begin to identify what that means. What does it mean to be a graduate from the Estacada School District? What are those key benchmarks where they should be successful? And what is our school district scorecard that matters most for our students and for our community? What does that best-in-class school district look like, feel like, and sound like? In order to achieve that, we have created an executive scorecard for our school board and for our community. Inside the district scorecard, we have identified things that are the most important for our students and their successes. This scorecard allows us to aim to be premier school district in the state of Oregon in all of the key areas, but primarily in student success, student engagement, parent satisfaction, employee engagement, professional learning communities, and a commitment to quality service. These are the core pillars that guide our work. The goal for today is to share our progress and execution of the strategic plan. The purpose of this rollout is to display the results and outcomes of year number 3 of our 5-year strategic vision. I will start by presenting the executive district scorecard and share each benchmark and standard as we move toward our 2030 aspirations. Each pillar leader will then report the year 3 outcomes for each core pillar. And then we will share the outcomes from each building and each department within our school district. And finally, I will share the strategic aims for our school district over the next 90-day improvement cycle. Thank you again for joining us on this journey. Let's open up the hood and review our strategic progress. So here is the executive scorecard of year 3 of our 5-year strategic plan. And as you analyze this, you can see that this scorecard is broken out by the 5 core pillars, student success being our most important pillar. We are committed to high levels of learning for all students inside our school district. During the pandemic, our academic leadership team was ambitious and awesome. We, as a team, made a goal that 85% of our students would demonstrate proficiency at all levels in all essential learning standards, K through 12. We knew that this was aspirational as we moved from distance learning to hybrid learning to in-person learning, back to distance learning, back to in-person learning. Many unhealthy transitions inside a school year. Our teachers, our support staff, and our building principals and leaders did heroic work, ultimately resulting in 72% of Estacada's children demonstrating proficiency in 100% of the essential learning standards. It fell short of our goal, but I'm very proud of the work that occurred through this process. And I'm very proud of what we learned as an organization and how we can continue to improve high levels of learning for all students. In the strong, inclusive, collaborative culture pillar, the orange flower petal that you can see in your graphic was focused really on 3 primary categories. Employee engagement. The Estacada School District strives to be a best place to work. We want to hire and retain the best talent for Estacada's kids. Our goal last year in 12 months was to score a 4.12 out of 5 on an employee engagement survey. In the spring, we measured that and scored a 4.18, and just this last fall, our employees ranked us a 4.22, showing above meaningful growth inside our school district. We are very pleased with that, and the credit goes to the leaders and our teammates who did a great job communicating and supporting our employees through this pandemic, wildfire, ice storm, and the many other challenges that we faced in our classrooms on a daily basis. This is excellent. We also are focused on quality service, and our goal was to score a 4.26 out of 5 on the district services surveys. Now what this means is the district office serving our leaders in a way that our leaders can be successful in serving our employees and our children? So our goal was to score a 4.26 last year. In the spring, we measured that at a 4.36 above our goal, and we continued to grow that over the summer and this early fall, ultimately scoring a 4.51, exceeding our goal and expectations. Tremendous work in having a service mindset and trying our best to allow all of our leaders and all of our employees to be successful inside this school district. Student engagement is very important inside our school district. We want to collect that student voice, and we want to capture the representation of Estacada's children so our school district can mirror their hopes and desires of what they want a school district to be for them. Our goal was to score a 3.98 out of 5 in the student engagement survey. In the springtime, we did very well at a 4.02. As students returned back this fall, I think it's important to note that when we scored this 4.02, students were not necessarily on campus yet at this time. As students now have returned to campus, we have different challenges that we have to work through. As we welcome all kids back, in this fall we scored a 3.84, and so we moved backwards as a school district in this measure, and we fell below our goal. This is great news, because it allows us to have the opportunity to ask why, collect more student voice, and make improvement plans to get us back on track when it comes to student engagement. We care about this, and we will be focused on this. Our parents, in general, are extremely happy with their school district. We want to be a school of choice. We want parents to choose to send their children to the Estacada School District. Our goal was to score a 3.88 out of 5 on the parent satisfaction survey. In the springtime, we scored a 3.97 above our 12-month goal. And just this last fall, our parents continue to report that we're making improvements inside our school district, ultimately leading to us exceeding our 12-month scorecard goal. This is great news. Our buildings and our transportation, custodial, and nutrition department are working hard to partner with our families to make sure that we're a school district that reflects the values of our parents. And this is an indication that we're doing great work. We are truly a school district of choice for our families right now. One of the things as we return back from a pandemic is we want to make sure that our schools appear clean and safe as humans and adults return back into our facilities. In the springtime, our goal was to score a 3.9 out of 5 on the student engagement survey with the specific question, "My school is clean," or specific statement. In the springtime, we scored a 4.04, exceeding by far our goal. As students returned back on campus, 100% of our students returned back on campus. That score also took a dip to 3.87. The good news is this is growth, 3.87, from where they scored us 12 months ago, but it's still just a little bit short of our 12-month goal. So we did see improvement from fall to fall in this score, but we fell just slightly short of our goal. And so excited to, again, ask our students what we can do to improve their experience while on campus at Estacada. And then the last two is heavily focused on financial transparency, making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable to the taxpayers and the public funds that were provided to educate its children. Our goal was to score a 3.85 in the employee engagement to make sure that our employees, first and foremost, felt like we were making good decisions with our finances. In the springtime of last year, that was a 3.96, well above, and we ultimately ended in the fall with a 4.03 from our employee voice, one of the most improved areas. And a lot of credit goes to our supervisors and principals who helped convey the message of how the school district was transparently, openly, and honestly allocating its funds to support the classroom. And last but not least, for our community, it's very important that we always have a clean audit. And so professional auditors know, and our community knows, that we're doing good, honest, ethical things with taxpayer funds. And we're able to communicate that the best in the audit results. And so for 4 years consecutively now, I'm pleased and proud to report that Estacada has come with a clean audit with 0 findings for 4 consecutive years, ultimately leading to our financial goal, and it's something that we hope to maintain and sustain. And so as we start this day and we kick off this day, I just wanted to report from the overall scorecard perspective of year 3 of our mission, vision, and values to accomplish the strategic plan created by the community, co-owned by the employees of the Estacada School District, that really in general, the state of the Estacada School District is good, and we're moving in the right direction. And I'm excited for our leadership team today, as well as those who are watching on YouTube Live, have the opportunity to hear our story as we held our expectations high through this pandemic, as we tried to make sure all kids are accomplishing grade level standards, and we continue to be that best place to work for our employees. So with that said, I'm going to invite our Director of Curriculum and Instruction as we begin to talk about student success. Scott.
Thank you, Superintendent Carpenter. Excuse me, I'm going to remove my mask just so I can use my glasses today. I'd like to introduce real quick the team of the Student Success Pillar from last year. Last year we had a team and we had some key players, and a couple of them disappeared on us this year. One of those key players from last year's work was Chrissy Cheshire, our data management guru, who is here with another team this time around. We had Lindsay Fullenweiter, our K-5 instructional coach. We had Leah Rydell, who was our special teacher on special assignment in charge of federal programs and focusing a lot on our EL, English Language Learner program. And we had Lexi Hill, who's no longer with our team. She worked as our Canvas and Zoom coach. She is now a counselor at one of our elementary schools. And so that was the team that worked together last year. This year, we've added some new members to our team. I'd like to announce those today. One of those is Miss Kate Dean from Estacada High School. She is the Estacada High School instructional coach, and we welcome her. And we also welcome Rachel Perry. She is our middle school instructional coach, and looking forward to seeing her shine this year. And we have a new person replacing Christy, although there is no way to really replace Christy, and that is Bryce Babikoff, who is our new data management guru on our team. So the work that we're going to talk about today is from last year, but all of us that I've just mentioned have all played a role, whether they're on the team or not. They have played a role in this work that we have been doing. First of all, as Superintendent Carpenter had mentioned, we had set a goal about 14 months ago to have 85% of our students meet all essential learning standards. That means not 70% of them, not 80%, not 90%, but 100% of all essential learning standards that they receive in a school year. That was a lofty goal, and I would like to set that higher in the future, but for now, that was our first year aspiration goal. So, what was our journey? The journey over the last 12 months, 14 months, really began with a high-level goal, but we did not have all of the measures in place to help us measure along the way how we were doing in providing us with data that would help us make decisions quickly and responsively to move forward. We've been spending a lot of time fine-tuning our essential learning dashboard, which was a great tool, a fantastic tool, but it showed us really an autopsy of how kids were doing at the end of a time period not giving us indicators of success. However, I will state that this dashboard, which was also helped co-created by Mr. Mike Ware, along with Christy Cheshire and Bryce Babikoff, that we were able to monitor and measure student by student, name by name, standard by standard. We know what our students entered the year at. We know what they left the year at. We know where they were at in terms of learning based on the essential learning standards, not some overall grandiose letter grade that tells us they did something. We know specifically what they did. We measured our progress without any real true leading indicators through the use of rounding logs, stoplight reports, and trying to view as much of the lagging data as we could. In addition, we made a number of adjustments throughout the year, which we'll talk about towards the end of this discussion, in order to keep us in the concept of improvement science, continuous improvement. We're always looking at what we're doing and trying to make adjustments to improve. As Mr. Carpenter has shared, we did not reach our goal. We reached about 72% of our students, met 100% of their essential learning standards, and it was below our goal. But again, I think for a first year with all of the turmoil and disruption, that we kept the eye on the prize, and that is student learning. I wanted to share with you a quick rounding summary. I put this together after spending probably, I should have counted those up, several hundred rounding events. I would meet for 15 to 20 minutes with individuals throughout the year, asking them some questions about what's working, what's not working, who would they like to celebrate, who's doing the work. And based on those conversations throughout the school year, these are a summary of some key themes. Number one, for most of the part of the year, our leaders maintain a strong focus on essential learning standards, especially at the building level. Outside of the building, it wasn't as easy because sometimes they were second-hand and third-hand, but at our building levels, our leaders were focused on essential learning standards and student growth throughout the year. It is a general theme that we did lack leading data to help us make decisions that were on top of things and helped us lead to change. We also tended to rely too much on anecdotal data in our work. We didn't take the concrete and use it and really refer to it. We spent a lot of time using anecdotal data, which in itself is not bad, but it didn't get us to the level that we needed to. Two opportunities that I found in our rounding that might help in our action steps for this year is that as we round, we must maintain that focus on individual learning action plans. Each one of the individuals in this room has a learning action plan or a leader action plan for the work that they're trying to accomplish. We need to stay true and focused on those leader action plans in order for us to continue to grow and strive for excellence. As we round, we will also need to identify key data and bring that to the forefront of our conversations in order to improve. And the last piece of this 3-2-1 report is that what is one action step being taken based on the roundings from last year, and that is that we are going to and have already begun and almost finished creating a new dashboard for readiness indicators, which we'll talk about in a little bit. In addition to rounding summaries, we also like to look at stoplight reports. And so I wanted to share stoplight reports. And a stoplight report just goes over, again, some of the key successes, key semi-wins, and also key wins that I noticed, or our team noticed, throughout the school year. Let's start with some of the roadblocks. Comprehensive distance learning definitely created a difficult adjustment for our teachers and families. It was not quick. As Superintendent Carpenter mentioned, we went from in-person to CDL to hybrid, back and forth. Those changes were very disruptive, and they got in the way, I believe, with our focus on student learning because our leaders had to spend a lot of time redesigning, replanning, refocusing on managing the building. That was number 2. Number 3, data for non-core courses was not always available. So at our secondary level, we had good data early on from our English language arts and our math programs. We did not have data for our social studies, science, health, PE, etc. That came later in the year. And also, I think one of the key roadblocks or barriers is that we just did not have the ability to have specific data for our leader action plans as we met and reported out and made adjustments. There were some good things happening. There were some yellows I have in here, and one of those is that our K-5 principals increased their focus on PLCs last year, even with all of the disruption and distance learning, and they put together some 30-day cycles of improvement with specific goals, and they worked hard on doing that. There definitely was a focus on proficiency that increased. It wasn't complete. We still had to focus on other things. And again, we continue to have a lack of reliable data on what is and what is not working. That anecdotal data was a good start, but we need to provide some more specific data to truly identify what works and what's not, so we can abandon what's not working and we can continue to move forward with what is working. One last thing that came out, a theme came out, was that we did, when we had last spring, a number of small groups that were put together to help, and we believe that they were very effective in helping student learning. However, question mark is we don't have true data to identify if that is a true statement or not. However, let's look at the green, some of the big highlights of last year. Our K-5 schools were aligned like never before. I've been in this district for several years, and I have never seen our elementary schools work together, partner together, and keep the eye on the prize together. And not only were the leaders, specifically leaders in that, but our teachers and our staffs were also willing to work together and join hands. Our staff was very flexible throughout the year. I cannot say enough how all of our staff in the Estacada School District, from licensed to non-licensed, continued to be flexible, adjust on the fly, and not complain and let that get in the way with our true mission, and that is to educate students. We saw discussions surrounding essential learning standards progress throughout the system, not just with teachers, not just with school leaders, but our HR departments, our Department of Technology. Every department was focused in talking about student learning. And finally, one other big win was last year we started the year slow with some of our technology in the hands of students, but soon we were able to get Chromebooks in every student's hand, whether they were on campus, distance learning, and in some cases out of state. Specific data. I do have some, but this is lagging. What you see before you is starting about November 25th, we were able to really start to measure the percent of our students who were meeting 100% of their essential learning standards. And we're around 40%. We dipped a little bit, then we got up to about 50, 55%. And it was pretty steady for a while. And then you see back in March, we saw an increase. And then it kept pretty steady. And the last couple of weeks, we saw another little bump up. And that's how we got to our 72%. Good data, great data. Again, we know where our kids were at the end. But not always was this helpful for us to determine what we could do next to improve. So, I mentioned, in the spirit of continuous improvement and improvement science, we believe that you need to make adjustments continuously to abandon what's not working, to adapt what you're working on, and to embrace what is working. So we made the following adjustments last year and throughout the year and this summer. We had bi-weekly meetings focused on specific data and student names. No longer are we looking at big percentages. We are asking student by student, I want to know, and I'm able to do this just yesterday, Our elementary team told me about students without their names, but said student X was able to do X, Y, and Z over the last 2 weeks, and they moved from here to there. We know specifically how our students are doing. We're having those discussions as a team so we could share our successes. We provided some training this year starting in August for all licensed staff members. That training is Destination High Performance from our partners at Studer Education. And we are focusing on establishing in the classroom mission, vision, values, establishing in the classroom students' use of data and monitoring and progressing their own growth, and also the use of plan, do, study, act cycles, PDSA cycles in our schools so that we can continue to monitor and look at the data and make decisions. Basically, I want to just say that we have made a focus or put a focus on looking at more concrete data and making our decisions based on that data. With that said, that is the end of the presentation for the Student Success Pillar, and I'd now like to introduce the Strong, Inclusive, and Collaborative Culture Pillar team.
Thank you, Scott. Can you guys hear me okay? Is all right? Okay. Well, good morning, and we are so excited to be up here presenting to you on the Strong, Inclusive, Collaborative Culture Pillar. First off, my name is Kelly Hayes. I serve as a Human Resource Coordinator here in the district for our licensed and administrative staff. Joining me is our Director of Student Services, Jason Hobson, and our other Human Resources Coordinator, Lisa Akins, who serves for our Classified Management and Confidential staff. Okay, so we're going to get started here. So a year ago, in October of 2020, we started out with some goals in our inclusive practices, our student engagement, our fall employee engagement, and our district services survey. And you can see on the chart here where our goals are set. And really excited this morning to celebrate the success with you of those goals. In inclusive practices, we exceeded our goal of 80% of students spending their day in the general education setting. We hit 95%. Our co-curricular activities, we're currently at 4%, and Jason's going to talk more with you about that next. We're also at a 3.84 in our student engagement survey, 4.22 in employee engagement, and a 4.49 in district services. First off, Jason's going to talk with us more about inclusive practices and student engagement.
I'm going to lower that down. Thank you, Kelly. And yeah, I'm excited here to talk a little bit more about our inclusive practices. So our pillar has multiple areas, as Kelly described. And within the inclusive practice, we also have multiple areas. And so it's going to take me a little bit of time to describe what we're up to. But I'm really excited about it. And our inclusive practice is truly that strategic action, our strategic plan in action. When we talk about the goals that we set 3 years ago in our strategic planning, we talked about including our students in the least restrictive environment. And so students that are served by special education, we want them to experience school in the most inclusive way possible alongside their peers. And so that was a big goal of ours. Also, we talked about how can our co-curricular activities, those students that are participating in our activities that we offer, whether it be sports, choir, band, drama, who are the students that are participating in that? We would want all of our students to have equal opportunity to experience that rich educational environment. So we started measuring that. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And we also wanted to capture and act upon what our students are telling us about their experience at school. And that requires that vision, collaboration, alignment, being persevering, innovative, and consistent. Take a little bit of time here to break down some of the data for our inclusive practices. So our inclusive practices encompasses 2 parts. We have our peer-to-peer, where our students spending their time in the day, and we really focused at the elementary level. And so the graph on the top right shows our growth from fall where our students who are served by special education were spending 86% of students were spending their time in the least restrictive environment. Last spring, that had creeped up to 89%. And I'm excited to share right now that right currently, 95% of our students at the elementary level are experiencing school in the gen ed setting, which is phenomenal, which is really great work. And that work doesn't happen by accident. It happens by teamwork, a belief, and a commitment to educating our students alongside their peers as much as possible. But that data that we're celebrating right now is a pretty big data point. And so we needed to tweak our way that we're measuring that. And so the graph down at the bottom left is a graph that we're sending out weekly, a form to receive feedback in real time on where our students spending their time on a weekly basis. And that graph also confirms what we know on these bigger measurement data points. It's pointing us and saying, yes, this trend is accurate. Keep doing what you're doing. So that's a huge celebration, and that will continue. So thank you for that. The graph down at the bottom, the black and green one, this is our secondary inclusive practice goal. So last year, we took a baseline data measurement of who are the students? What is the demographics of the students that are participating in these awesome co-curricular activities that we have established for folks? So this is the middle school and the high school data combined. And so we looked at student overall groups who was participating, and then we looked at some specific subgroups of students, students that are served by special education, students that are served by a 504 plan, and students that are emerging bilingual. And so the idea is that if those subgroups are mirrored in the general population demographics, then we know that we are creating an inclusive, warm, welcoming environment for our students. Last fall, the overall percentage of students that were participating in some type of co-curricular activity was 56%. 8% of students last fall in those subgroups of special education, served by special education, a 504 plan, or emerging bilingual was 8%. So it doesn't quite mirror our overall demographics. A recent data analysis this fall shows that currently 45% of students overall are participating in co-curricular activities. And our percentage of students in these identified subgroups has dipped a little bit as well to 4%. This also gives our teams an opportunity to dig into that data and start asking the questions about why and how. So it's great information to have. Another component of our work in this pillar is capturing student voice. So collecting that student voice, listening to what students are saying, and then measuring that outcome. So again, I want to just take a quick moment to share our fall to fall. Last fall, our students ranked us on a scale of 5, a 3.76. We had a goal to be 3.89. In the spring, we had a temperature check, and we scored a 4.02. Great growth. And then just most recently, actually today is the last day of student voice being captured. It's currently a 3.84, so we dipped a little bit. So again, this gives us opportunity at all levels to investigate and work on how do we improve the outcomes for students, listening to their voice and capturing that. So that's the component of my part of the pillar, and I'm excited about it. Thanks for the opportunity to share the great work that we're all doing together.
Thank you, Jason. So now I'm going to talk with us about our employee engagement survey and where we were at then a year ago and where we are at today. Our employee engagement survey is sent out to all of our staff, and we really focus on pushing the survey out, providing time for the survey, and trying to capture all of the voice that we can. A year ago, we had 176 responses, which is pretty good, but it wasn't 100%. This year, we had 280 responses, which is 100%, and it's actually over a little bit 100 because we had a few people who report to supervisors in multiple buildings who took their survey more than once, which is great because then we have input from them in every capacity which they serve, so that's wonderful. What we heard in this survey was our employees were asking for focusing on collaboration and increased positive communication. So employees want to be heard, they want clear expectations for things that affect their job performance, and they want clear communication. So our leaders heard that, focused on creating strategic action plans that incorporate those two items with their teams, and got right out of the gate. One of the great examples that we see from that was our teaching and learning department. They right away increased the weekly collaboration time for their team, and shortly after, their teams reported back that they felt more connected and more well-informed for district initiatives. This was also a great example of seeing the cascading communication in action. Another thing that we said, a barrier that we saw, or the pulse checks, sorry, I'm reading my own slides ahead of myself. We saw our supervisors using pulse checks in the spring to gather that leading data. One of the ones that we saw was our principal sets clear expectations, which is again focusing on that collaboration and communication, and we saw an increase of 0.27. We also saw the open and honest communication at the high school increase by 1.18, and that's a huge, tremendous gain, and thanks to the high school for focusing on that, and our employees for providing that survey. It's great feedback to receive. Another theme that we saw was how do we collect the right data to know if our actions are working, and what can we do, and that's where we use those pulse surveys and finding other ways outside of rounding. We focused on hardwiring behavior and employee shout-outs, thank you cards, and focusing on what right looks like. We had over 2,000 thank you cards sent out in the last year district-wide, which is just incredible. This is from every level, from the superintendent's office, custodial, facilities, transportation, maintenance. Everybody is sending out thank you cards, recognizing those behaviors of our standards of excellence. We also saw the increased communication, and these are a few ways that we've seen these come out live in the last year. We've seen our increase in our COVID-19 dashboard, our weekly s'mores from different departments, our All In for Estacada Schools podcast, a day in the life of the Estacada departments, starting off with the nutrition services. We saw our Super 60 updates and keywords at key times. We've seen these trends improving our scores in the employee engagement. You can see here on the graph where everybody is currently at, and it's important to note some of the scores here, and I want to specifically call out Clackamas River Elementary. So in the fall last year, Clackamas River took a survey just like the rest of every department, and they scored a 3.55. They got to work. In the spring, we hit a 4.08. But this year, in the fall, we went back down to a 3.83, which seems like a dip, but that's still overall growth, and we really want to celebrate that, and that gives Clackamas River an opportunity to roll out with their team their next steps. Another one is transportation. Look at the score for transportation. They started at a 4.49, and then in the spring, when we all know they were working extra hard, delivering meals to students, scored a 4.04, which is still incredibly high, and then they skyrocketed to a 4.47. We're really thankful to transportation and all of their hard work that they've been doing this year. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Lisa to talk about district services.
Good morning, everyone. I get the opportunity to talk about district services. Our district services are made up of 11 departments who have a strong passion and drive for collaboration and communication with all of our district leaders, our district staff, our district students, and of course our community. We started this journey back in October of 2020. We got our data, we rolled it out, and we started making strategic action plans based on what we heard. We knew we needed to increase our collaboration and our communication. One of the biggest things is, how are we, district services, really affecting our students? We needed to come up with strategic action plans that would help student growth and to help our leaders with their teachers encourage the students. In November, from the Office of the Superintendent, the first thing we started was the employee communications of the employee forum. That's been a huge success as a district service, as well as employee engagement. We started our plans, started noticing about in January, we're getting more qualitative than quantitative data. So we started looking at how are we going to change that? What is it? What kind of measures are we going to make so we can get some data? In February, our IT department really knew that one of the biggest things was customer service. They couldn't really collect correct data that they needed with the current survey program. So they tweaked it a little bit, start collecting that baseline data to make more differences down the road. In March, our transportation department, as kiddos were coming back to school, realized with the new pandemic protocols that were in place, the communication to the schools was needed. They started a two-way communication via their radios upon arrival and departure, so the pandemic protocols for exiting and entering the buildings would stay intact. So we knew our communication was working, we knew we were supporting our leaders, and we wanted to continue that throughout. We had over 30 strategic action plans with the 11 departments throughout the year. All but 6 of those moved to completion and are hardwired behaviors. Those 6 are still in process because we know they're working, but we want to continue to collect that data so we can continually improve. Right now, we've moved from our rounding sessions and collecting a little bit of data to actually what's on our, what we've been doing throughout, I want to highlight our facilities department. They have dashboards on their website now, and if you can see, we have 4.2 score of my school is clean. So this is every day they collect data information and they put it out on their dashboard. So we know it's working. Everybody's going in the same direction now. We've learned how each department affects student learning. We're going to continue as we roll out new plans to keep that focus in mind, which at times is a little bit different. Like, how does facilities really take care of our students? How does, well, we know how nutrition services does, but what is it they can do to improve that? Human resources, there's so many different things. Finance, we're all working for one goal with student success. As we knew, our district services score increased up to 4.49. Here's the bar graph for every single district service that we have. I'm going to do a couple shout outs today. So as district services, we are evaluated or their survey on 5 things: timeliness, accuracy, attitude, availability, and operations. So I'm going to call out our communications department. A year ago, we knew that the communications department was a little shy on staff. We knew that our communications department was one of our key things that we needed to get out there, not only for our staff, but for our community. So we brought on interpreter, translator, who has made deep connections with our Spanish-speaking families. We also knew that we needed to increase our technology within that department, so we brought on our multimedia specialist, Josh Gray, who has brought a whole new light to what we can do as far as YouTube streamings, our board meetings online, so many different things. So because of that, the communications department has grown to up to 4.14, steady growth. I just wanted to do a quick shout out to them because they've done such a great job, so great job on that, you guys. Another thing, technology. We've mentioned technology a couple of times. With the tweak that they made back in February, they got a baseline data to know that customer service is one of the biggest things, and how can they make that change? They've done it. They've created new data points, new measures, and now our technology department has grown 0.74 in the last year. So again, congratulations to technology for making such a huge difference. Sorry. So overall, inclusive culture pillar. What have we learned? The entire pillar. We know our leaders care. They've heard our employees. They've heard our students. We know our leaders care. Our employees are happy. We know this by our increased scores. Data, data, data. Data is definitely the foundation of improvement science, of the improvement science work, and monitoring improvement. We've got to keep collecting the data to make things grow. One of our big things, our leaders are accountable to one another. We set our rounding schedules, we meet our rounding schedules, we support one another. You can always count on us as leaders of this pillar. It's been phenomenal to watch the growth for everybody to move together. Our strategic plan goals are being brought to life in our buildings each and every day. We see PDSAs at all levels, great to see. And it's okay to try something new if it doesn't have that impact we expect this. It's okay to fail forward. And we're striving for excellence, not perfection. And all of this work couldn't have happened without you. And we are one of the top workplaces in Oregon, and we need to celebrate that. Our next steps, we want to continue to celebrate and measure the work that all of you are doing and to ensure we keep on track to hit our strategic plan goal. We want to continue doing the actions that are working, and we want to support you leaders. We cannot do this work without you. The way you've taken this on, the way you've cascaded it through your departments is just phenomenal, and we really, really appreciate it. We want to abandon the actions that aren't working. We want to reflect on how are we going to maintain. There's a lot of departments that are up above that 4.5. You know, how are you going to maintain that? Love for growth, but how are you going to maintain that? We want to reflect on how do you know what we can measure? Again, we struggle with data. We've got to find those things that measure. We've got to talk with one another to see what's working. We want to get ready to roll out our data and create new plans and collaborations with our teams. We're really excited about that. We always get such great voice in those rollouts. So collect those voices, hear those voices, and create your plans. Always celebrate the wins. They're daily. Make sure you recognize and reward successes for aligned behavior. And remember, we've hit a lot of strong goals. The trajectory is going up. We really appreciate all the hard work everyone has done here. Thank you. I am going to turn this over to Maggie Kelly, our operations director.
All right. I am really excited to talk about engaged families and community growth today. As a quick reminder, our goal was to score 3.88 on the parent engagement survey. That would have been a growth of 0.1 from fall of last year. And just to put this in context, as some other departments have, we faced pretty tremendous odds when it came to engaging our families over the past year, from the wildfires to the pandemic to some of the most polarizing times education has ever seen, and the additional hurdle of not being able to welcome families into our buildings. So to see a growth and to score a 3.99 on our parent engagement survey is really a tremendous achievement. That score increased by 0.21 overall, so really exciting. And these numbers are hot off the presses from what parents are telling us in the parent engagement survey. I also have highlighted the lowest scoring item across all buildings, which was regularly receiving feedback on how well my child is learning. As you can see on the screen as well, we continued to see growth from year to year as we progressed over time in that. So really exciting to see that growth that families are telling us right now, a snapshot in time from last week, that things are improving overall. So let's take a look at some specific things. Our parent satisfaction score grew in every single building. This was not just one building knocking it out of the park. Every single building, and of course district-wide, we saw growth on our parent satisfaction score. So really a tremendous shout out to all of the buildings. And then specifically, again, hitting on that lowest scoring item, regularly receiving feedback from school staff on how well my child is learning. We saw growth at every single building on that really tough to improve item, and that's an important one. Knowing how well my child is learning is a key component of what we do in communication. I wanted to highlight one of the quotes from a parent also. We can sometimes view all the changes that we are constantly enduring in this district with the pandemic and quarantines and closing down school and reopening school as a negative. But this parent right here, this is a Clackamas River parent that said that when there is an issue, admin quickly addresses them. And I wanted to bring up, I had a parent at the beginning of the school year. They were very concerned about quarantine at Clackamas River. They emailed me. I called them shortly after. And they said, no worries. I talked to the office at Clackamas River. They told me everything I need to know. It seemed like the same thing I had already gotten from the district. And then my kid's teacher had already reached out, emailed me, said that they would miss my child when they're quarantined in class. and they were getting aligned communication from every single level, which is exactly what we love to see. And so even though we are enduring all these continuous changes that continue to rev the engine, our schools are really doing a tremendous job of cascading communication and being consistent with the communication. Also, on regularly receiving feedback, Clackamas River went up 0.58, which is really fantastic growth. A lot of parents crediting in that survey Canvas, regular communication with their child's teacher, and we saw growth at all buildings, so really exciting. The work that our staff have committed to and that teachers are doing connecting with families every day is paying off. Another win I wanted to highlight is that I receive positive communication from my child's school. It's another really important one, and another parent saying that it brightens my daughter's day every time she gets a positive handwritten note. This was from Estacada High School, a parent shouting this out, and Estacada High School went from a 2.65 last year to a 3.69 in positive communication. So just incredible off-the-charts growth. Estacada High School has done such a great job of really supporting staff, having that contact log where they're keeping track of the staff's intentional outreach to families. And those handwritten notes, those postcards home, those phone calls, they make a difference, and they're showing up here that they are making a difference to our families, especially during a time when our families and our students are facing probably the most educational adversity that they might ever have to face. So those positive communications, really fantastic work. Some other wins. Transportation department, I love seeing they have a log. They're reaching out to families, and this is something that we would not traditionally see in other districts, but I love that our transportation department is calling, connecting with families, and recognizing when a kid is doing a good job on a bus. I heard of a story of a student that had maybe gotten in a little bit of trouble, asked to go to an assigned seat, and then they called families and say, hey, your child has really turned it around. We made these changes, and they're really doing a great job on the school bus now. So that is the type of communication that is a real difference maker for families, and just outstanding to see other departments supporting the work we're doing. Another exciting one was on our parent engagement survey. Not only did the scores tremendously improve, the participation improved tremendously. More than 50 of our Spanish-speaking families completed this year's survey. That is really, really fantastic turnout. I want to applaud Leticia Gonzalez. She reached out to more than 40 families with rounding overall so far this year. And our Spanish-speaking families scored our district a 4.08, which is higher than our general population of families are scoring the district. So there's been a lot of growth in that demographic, and it's really exciting to see. And then overall, our survey participation rate increased by 31% from the fall of last year. We had a turnout of 732 parents last year. We were at about 550. So seeing that growth is just incredibly exciting. We know we're hearing from more families. And I would say that that's an indication that our families are more engaged than ever before. I saw efforts from every single building. Estacada Middle School secretaries do a fantastic job putting things on social media. I saw it in the s'mores. You guys did a great job of communicating the why. I almost felt compelled to take the survey, even though I don't have kids in your schools. And just a really good job on that. And then additionally, utilizing Parent Square was a big difference maker. Every single time we would send out a Parent Square, we would get over 100 new responses. So it's really an effective tool in driving participation on that survey. I was also looking earlier this year and was really impressed to see that Rivermill has jumped headfirst into their secretary rounding. I was looking, they're keeping that rounding log, they're checking in with families, and just a level of depth and follow-up that you would not normally see, just outstanding service, saying they called a parent, here's what they heard from it, here's their plan to follow up. Just really great service, and I think this allows us to get additional insight into how our families are doing and get some more of that leading data that I know we can sometimes struggle with in this particular pillar. Another thing is that finance and operations have both kind of gone out of the comfort zone and have launched their department video series, and they're always welcome to making more adjustments to effectively engage parents in the community in how we're doing on our facilities and how we're doing in our finances. So really exciting to see that as well. Now to some barriers and opportunities. I really wanted to highlight this quote from a parent because I think it sums up one of the struggles that we're facing right now, is that it's strange not being able to see my child's school, classroom, or teacher. And that is one of the biggest barriers we face, and I think everyone has done a tremendous job of still continuing to engage families, be it having virtual open houses or picking up the phone more often or having outdoor events. I see each school making intentional efforts to continue to welcome families, but it is a barrier that we'll have to continue to get creative to work around. Another additional barrier is creating more leading data. I know it's difficult. This is people's opinions. This is not something where we can see what grades are or what graduation rates are. We are looking for people's opinions on how we're doing to engage families. So I think we have great opportunities to increase our leading data, leaning more into family rounding, as well as just quick, short pulse checks when you're sending out s'mores or sending out a phone call or you have a family event, just those quick pulse checks where we can get more leading data to help us make adjustments on the fly. We also always know that we need to align communication to ensure that families are not feeling overwhelmed. I will say I looked at the responses of communication overwhelm from last year's survey. It was mentioned 22% more often in last year's survey than it was in this year's survey. So I think we are making intentional changes to not overwhelm families. I love one thing that Clackamas River does is they have red news, so it's segmented at the top. This is the important news. If you get to the yellow and green, that's a bonus, but you know the most important stuff to read first, and I think that's really helpful. And then additionally aligning so that we have district-wide s'mores, we have district-wide parent squares so we can kind of see what each other is sending and avoid some of that overlap. And then lastly, just finding an efficient and effective way to communicate with families via our staff. I know they are doing so much work right now to pick up the phone and call families. Let's see if we can lean into some ways, like I've had some staff members reach out to learn more about s'more. Are there ways that they can utilize s'more or parent square or some of these other things to continue to close the loop with families and close that barrier without overwhelming them and having them to pick up the phone even more when there's so much going on? So really tremendous work overall, and families are saying that what we're doing is working, and we have exciting opportunities for continued growth. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mike Weiner.
Good morning. I'm Mike Weiner, Executive Director of Operations, as well as the leader of the Up-to-Date Buildings and Facilities. Today I'll tell you a little bit about our journey over the last year or so. So our Up-to-Date Buildings and Facilities is really focused on ensuring that our facilities are clean, safe, warm, and dry. And a lot of questions typically come up around that is why? Why are you focusing on clean buildings and clean buses or cafeterias and kitchen? Well, we know that research is out there that that's all connected to student success, and that's what we're here for. So we decided to make a focus that we wanted to score a 3.90 on the My School is Clean question from our students' voice. So we'll talk a little bit about our journey over the last year and see where we've had some wins and some opportunities. Really quick, our leader action plans in progress, 54% are in the green, and we'll talk about what green, yellow, red means in a second. 27% are in the yellow, 18% are in the red. Red means that we're either stuck or we did not meet our intended goal or action. Yellow, we're making progress, we're collecting data, we're not too sure if it's working quite yet, or we maybe have a little bit of a barrier. Green, we made that progress, we see the outcomes, we're seeing success from our action plans. And a good little story on the red is working with Jason Hobson, our student success student services director. He was stuck early on in the year. How does he connect his department and his work to up-to-date buildings and facilities? And we were, as working through it with him, we first identified, well, what is a lot of things that his department, student services, and operations work together. We do a lot of projects together to improve access, to improve safety. So we started collecting the data and realizing, we're doing a number of projects. Over 50% of our projects are related to safety or ADA access. So we were quickly able to start transitioning from a red to a yellow to start collecting that data. And then we took it another step, which I really appreciate Jason thinking outside of the box, is that how can we collect data from students served by special education, and how can we collect it at the exit interview of an IEP? So he started adding questions to the exit interview of an IEP with parents to see if their assessment of our buildings and facilities are clean and up to date. So we're starting to collect preliminary data on that as we go into this new cycle. But again, that's a success story of working with a department that's very indirectly related to what we're doing in up-to-date buildings and facilities. So here's our trend scores over the last year. We didn't collect data in October 2019, but in May we started collecting data, and you can see that preliminary data of a 3.38, pretty low in our overall assessment in the district for our students' voice, saying that their buildings are up to date or are clean. This is why I love this work, because you can see our trend. We're moving up through the heart of a pandemic, through a fire, through a winter storm. Our students are not in our building, but you can see between October 20 and May of 2021, we're progressing. We're going the right way. I was sure locked that we had this, and we had this score. I knew it from what the actions that we were seeing and from the results. And then we get our score of this time. Preliminary data says we're 0.3 off our mark. And so this is why it's fun. What did we miss, or what do we need to do different now? We knew that pictures and engaging our students through different newsletters, different media was working. Our middle school, our elementaries, our high school did different tactics, and we're engaging our students who are not in our building, to showing them the cleanliness of our buildings, to showing the cleanliness of our kitchens, as well as our bus drivers soon be transporting to and from school, engaging with our students. So we knew that was working, but so you can see as a breakdown, our intentional actions created change. Over the course at the high school, we had a bump of that 0.44 from fall to spring, and then we dropped a little bit. At the middle school, a 0.40, and then from that fall to spring, and then we dropped down in this preliminary data that we received for fall 21. So why? Why is that? Rounding with Ben Hargrave this week, we started identifying some of those themes and some of the things that we are thinking that we need to do a root cause, or we need to do an investigation of why we saw a dip in their scores going from there. Similar, Clackamas River and Rivermill Elementary, we saw an increase at Clackamas River of a 0.23. We did see a dip at Rivermill of a 0.23. That's not correct, actually, of a 0.5 rather. And while that's still a dip, it's very much exceeding the initial goal that we had of that 3.90. But again, coming into fall, we're seeing a dip. Why is that? And this is why we do this work, and this is why it's the fun stuff. Some other things that we learned throughout our journey. As Decatur School District, we delivered over 5,000 packages to students during the heart of the pandemic to make sure they had access to education and to learning. We delivered and provided over 127,000 meals to students between fall of 2020 to the summer of 21. Our work order completion has increased by 28%, and our expenditures internally has decreased by 43%, being more efficient and cost-effective. We're a true one-to-one device school now. Every student has a clean and working and functional device, as well as our teachers have functional computers to be able to teach their students, whether it's in the classroom or in person or virtually. And we've contributed over, I think, 155 work orders over the last fiscal year, investing about $25,000 in safety and ADA access to our students and for our staff. So those are some things that we've learned and some things that we can highlight throughout the year. And they're all connected, again, to our student success, to up-to-date buildings and facilities. So opportunities. We missed our goal by 0.03, but that's okay. That's not too bad. We now have an opportunity to engage our students in a different way. We need to do more rounding. We need to have maybe more open forums. Our students are here in our buildings now. How can we engage them and get their voice? Building walks with our students. Cleaning efforts with some of our students. So these are the things that I'll be working with our leaders at the building level and at the district level on how we can engage. Continue that communication from media, from Superintendent Carpenter to myself, to other media events that what we're doing in our buildings, highlighting the wins and the cleanliness of our buildings to communicate. Investigate that decrease in the scores for all schools and departments, and introduce more short cycle improvement activities through our system. So down to our custodians, from our cooks in our kitchen, our bus drivers. How can we utilize these tactics to improve our scores and engage our students in up-to-date buildings and facilities? And that is my quick report on up-to-date buildings and facilities. I'll turn it over to Christina Weiner.
Hi, thank you. I'm Christina Weiner, the Director of Finance for Estacada School District. My presentation is going to be a little bit different because over the last year we've had some transition in the finance pillar, and the biggest is me. I'm brand new. Today is my 6-month anniversary here, so that's the biggest change. So I am looking at what's happened in the pillar since I've been here. And a lot of that is listening what's happening and really digging in to find out what the pillar is about. So in my listening, I found out we had opportunities for communication, responsiveness, and timeliness. Communication is important because we have to be transparent with our finances. I have learned that we have opportunities to build trust within our staff and our community. And I'm excited to do that, to share that opportunity with you. Responsiveness and accessibility. It is my job to support you and help you. They're not my district finances, they're our finances. And it's my job to help and be there, be available for you. And timeliness. I don't want to be a barrier, and I don't want my partner to be a barrier. So we're working on ways to speed things up and make things happen faster. I also want to add that I'm very grateful for this strategic plan. It is aligned with my goals and my values, and I'm excited to keep moving forward on this. So part of this sustainable finances and accountabilities is to improve trust from our stakeholders and the wider Estacada community. And we're doing this by making transparent financial decisions. I know it says superintendent, but this is not superintendent. This is you, leaders and employees of Estacada. We've been doing really great at cascading information about our financial decisions that we made. So it is my goal to keep sharing that information, making information available for you so we can understand that it is all of our finances. Sorry, I went too fast. Our goal was to score 3.85 in the employee engagement survey. The superintendent manages district's finances appropriately. Oops, wrong way. In the fall, we're at that 3.85 goal, fall of 2020. In this fall of 2021, we're at 4.03. That is not my work, that is your work. Your leaders and employees. And that is great. The top box, the people that scored 5 last fall was 22%. This fall, it is 35%. So we're making strides in that transparent finance. Looking a little bit deeper into that, I want to make a few call outs. Estacada High School, they grew 0.49%. No, not percent, 0.49, sorry. And then we have a couple areas of opportunities where I can meet with the leaders of the food service and facilities departments to work and share information within their department budgets. And finally, our final goal is to maintain 0 findings in our annual audit. The district, as Superintendent Carpenter said, had previously had 3 years of 0 findings. I'm proud to announce that it is looking like for our 2021 audit, we are also going to have 0 findings. So I'm very excited to bring that forward. And then I'm also going to be moving to next year. We're going to be building a CAFR, which is a comprehensive annual financial audit. It's a bigger, more robust financials that has a lot of statistical information. And with that, we can submit it for awards to gain to show the community that our financials are trustworthy and that we're being transparent within that. Again, I don't have many adjustments to make at this time because we're really getting up and going within our department. So we're looking forward to see how we can help you in each of your departments grow and show financial trust and transparency, and looking forward to next year.
What an awesome achievement in just 12 months of very intentional, intense focus work. I think it's important to remind ourselves as we transition from an entire school district to different individual departments and schools, just to talk about again how this works. And so at the end of the day, the Estacada community, in collaboration with the employees of the Estacada School District, created a strategic plan. It is the responsibility of all of our school district leaders to execute the mission, vision, and values of that strategic plan. So what we just recently spent about 30 minutes on is talking about each pillar at the 10,000 or 100,000 foot level, the district core pillars, and how as an entire organization we're working together to accomplish those goals. I hope that you've been able to see the data and the story that tells us that the Estacada School District is on track to meet those 5-year goals and benchmarks of the strategic plan and to set us up for success for the ultimate pathway of envisioning what the Estacada School District will look like in 2030. I want to thank our pillar leaders for the opportunity to present and share with our community and our school district our progress as we try to continuously improve our school district. And now I'm very excited for you to be able to hear our buildings and our departments individually as they talk about their individual work in progress towards accomplishing these goals at a very specific level. And so without further ado, I want to introduce, to start out, Estacada Middle School, led by Principal Ben Hargrave.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Ben Hargrave. I'm the principal at Estacada Middle School. Go Tigers. I would like to thank our directors for all of the work that they're doing alongside our schools and myself, helping to solve problems and offer innovative ideas as we jump into action with students, families, and staff. And I'm in charge of this, right? Okay. So the first story that I'm going to talk about is our employee engagement survey. The black graph indicator to the right of that table shows an upward trajectory, and that is true of where we have been at the middle school in regard to employee engagement. Last fall, we set 2 leader action plans to support our employees' engagement based on the bottom 2 indicators in this survey. At a high level, what I noticed was that there was a perceived disalignment between the superintendent and the building administration. And I saw it as an opportunity for us to align our goals district-wide. And the 2 bottom indicators had to do with open and honest communication and the superintendent making decisions in the best interest of the school district. To overcome those 2 barriers, what we did is we implemented weekly dialogue between our administration, myself, and our union leadership. And I would cascade that information in weekly agendas and weekly staff meetings in our agenda based upon the conversations that we were having. And then I also was able to show any sort of quantitative data of findings to staff about why decisions are being made. So I was always intentional to include that dialogue and show some type of image as to why I am making a specific choice or why we are making a specific choice. And we saw huge gains. So those wins that you can see in that first bullet point, those 2 squares, we increased open and honest communication throughout the year by 0.91, and superintendent making the best decisions for the best interest of the school district by 0.95, which is outstanding. And I see that, as I make inferences, I see that as building alignment to our district mission, vision, and values. In the springtime, what we did is we kept going because it was working. And so we didn't necessarily adjust or abandon anything. We continued with the practices to make them commonplace. And so they're becoming part of our new culture, part of our new norm that will continue forevermore. I do have to say that one learning was collecting some pulse survey data from my leadership team to tell us whether or not these intentional items were making a difference. And that pulse survey did suggest that we were on the right track. And so I'm excited to move forward as we adopt these items as part of our culture at the middle school, and build new action items moving forward, because these two indicators are no longer the bottom two indicators in the employee engagement survey. Parent satisfaction. Parent satisfaction also has an upward trajectory, and although we have made great gains with our parent satisfaction survey, we have more work to do. Last fall, we made it an intentional effort to send positive messages home weekly. We set aside time for our staff to do so, and we also made intentional efforts to communicate with our families what their students were going to be learning for the upcoming week at school, so there was no question about what was happening in specific classrooms. And so at the end of the fall, the first 90 days, 2 wins that we were able to harvest were communicating positive messages home to families. That indicator increased by 0.26. And then 0.05 improvement in receiving information from my school about my students' learning, which we hope to continue to build as well. And so one adjustment we made beginning in the spring was that we were going to help our families learn more about what proficiency-based grading is, what it means, how to interpret PowerSchool, what it looks like for your students if you were to open up PowerSchool and see proficiency indicators. And we hosted what we called a parent learning series. We spent a lot of time planning and preparing with our PLC departments to engage our parents into what learning looked like and how to determine whether or not your student was learning at home, or at home talking with your student about whether or not they were learning. And so we hosted 5 PLC-specific learning series. We had, on average, 163 impressions per viewing. And after it closed, we had 50, on average, 50 post clicks, which I think means that you stopped the Facebook Live, and then afterwards, how many people clicked on it to view it or see what was going on. And we surveyed families after engaging in these Facebook Lives, and on average, these pulse surveys came to us that I know. Let me try to back up here. That second bullet point right here, that one. On average, of the 5 PLC-specific learning series, families measured us on a scale of 5. We got the rating of 4 that they knew how well their child was learning at school. And so that poll survey was really cool, but it was much higher than the actual 3.32 score that was then recorded in our parent engagement or parent satisfaction survey. So that's a disconnect that I'd like to explore a little bit. And we truly need to talk more with our families. Like, what is it that's going to help us overcome this barrier? What do you want to know about how well your student is learning? What are you looking for? What specifics are you intending to hear from us? How frequently? Those kinds of questions are on my mind. So overall, we've had growth in the bottom two, but they continue to be in the bottom two indicators, and we need to start to listen and ask more questions to our families specifically about what we need to do to support them in hearing positive messages, as well as knowing how well their child is doing in school. Excited about that journey as well, and proud of what we accomplished. And then lastly, student engagement. This is not on an upward trend. We're regressing in our student engagement survey results. Not all of them, and especially not the ones in which we had targeted for improvement. Overall, though, we are on a downward trend, which is a concern of ours at the middle school, and we need to make some adjustments moving forward. To tell our story regarding student engagement, we made a lot of intentional efforts to support our facilities in the My School is Clean indicator, in which that has improved over time. And one continual measure that is low is students treat each other with respect at My School, and that is an indicator that we are constantly troubleshooting. We started in a new system last year called Togetherness Tuesdays, in which we taught students and we worked with students to send positive messages to each other about how they're helpful to one another, or whether or not they notice a student doing something kind for another student. And we documented from fall to spring, we documented 1,465 emails. And in that indicator, we saw an increase of 0.2, which is cool. And it's also really cool that students were sending positive messages to one another. In the springtime, we made a few adjustments because we transitioned from all virtual to then in-person hybrid learning, which convoluted some of our processes a little bit. We started to send out a Google form to our students to recognize one another, as well as reinforce behaviors through PBIS raffles, where we would buy students ice cream, and students loved that. And so we did see growth in both of those indicators, and they are at least the one with in regard to respecting one another at school, that still continues to be low, and something that we need to work on. One big win that I'd like to celebrate is the indicator in the student engagement survey, I enjoy PE, music, and art. That had a huge increase. I don't have it on here. I should have written it, but I think it was 0.6, which is huge increase between virtual and in-person learning, as well as some new staff hiring as well. And so that indicator, as we think about school in general and what we're doing for the whole child, I think that that's really significant, which is exciting. And then we need to collect more student voice. I'm not sure if this is the same in other schools, but when we roll out our student engagement survey, we don't include students in it. It's only like teacher-based or staff-based, and so that needs to change. And I'm looking forward to changing that at the middle school and starting to elicit student voice as we roll out these indicators. We need to be doing that. And so looking forward to the upcoming school year, super excited with the growth that we have, as well as the opportunities for improvement. Thank you all for all of your support as well. Go Tigers. And next up is Ms. Berman at Rivermill.
you. I am Jennifer Berman, the principal at Rivermill Elementary School.
I'm Trevor Steering, the vice principal at Rivermill.
So first of all, I want to mirror Principal Hargrave and just a big thank you to our directors and coordinators at the district level, because the work that we're doing and presenting today would not be as successful without your support, without being that listening ear, and then also just trying to find those resources that we need as we ask for them. So thank you for that. We will start with our employee engagement survey. So at Rivermill in the fall of 2020, 5.1, which we were really happy with those results. In the spring, we took a little bit of a dip at a 4.47, and that was definitely expected just based on the challenges that we were facing from fall to spring. At hybrid, adding more and more students, we were asking a lot of our staff. A lot of decisions were being made quickly, and so we used that as an opportunity to work through and make sure our communication was clear and we were hearing the voices of our staff, which then led to a fall score in 21 this fall of a 4.50, so we jumped back up there. In fall of 20, we had started adding a big piece to our communication in our staff meeting time, and our agenda was links to wins and celebrations. So that became something that created a culture where every single staff meeting, that's how we started. And so we added that piece along with district updates and classroom invites, because based on the feedback that we got, they wanted to know if there was something new happening at that district level that maybe I wasn't remembering to communicate. So this was kind of that marker so that I remembered to speak to that in our staff meetings, and then also wanting more feedback on their practice. So it was a place where they could invite people to their classrooms if they needed or had something special they wanted us to see. So really the whole point of the plan that we had last fall was to just create that culture with a consistent system for clear communication that was focused on the goals that we had.
And then in the spring of 2021, when we look at the results, we came across some learnings. Our first thing was that we needed more measurable action steps because what we were being asked was not being measured. So we needed to be very specific in our action steps. And then as a result of that too, some action steps that we made was that we wanted it says V18, that's a vertical alignment team, which is comprised of a staff member from each grade level, that they get together, and it's an opportunity for us to just touch base to make sure that K through 5, we are vertically aligned. And then if there's other issues that come up, we have that opportunity to talk about it. An example might be that we just found out that, some kindergarten students were having a hard time using scissors and cutting. And so 4th grade teacher was at this vertical alignment team, heard that and said, oh, we could maybe jump in and come down once a week or something and support and help. So that came out of this of cycle 2. More voice in leadership, where in our leadership we have more of that open door policy. So if somebody wants to come and join leadership and talk about something, we have that opportunity to have that open communication dialogue, to dive in and what can we do to solve an issue or move forward. Also, clarification in documents. It was very clear to say these are the specific people you go to. Having new staff on board, we want to know who you can go to. And then here's what everybody's role is. We want to be very clear about that. And we added more staff links on our staff meeting agenda. So as teachers went back, all the links were in there. So if they forgot what was talked about the staff meeting, they could go back, click on that link, and be able to read all the information. It was there. It wasn't secret or hidden.
So because of those 2 cycles, we have some wins in our fall results. The areas that were marked high last time continued to stay high, so it showed us that the work that we were doing to help combat some of those issues, especially around communication, we're continuing to stay high at that, in that area. And in the comments, there was a consistent trend in our comments in employee engagement that the communication was very clear, expectations were clear, and they were feeling supported. So that was a huge win in those trends. Some learnings that we found is that our low items continue to be our low items, and when I say that, it's still at like a 4.28, which is a high score, but still an area that we want to make sure we are not dropping the ball on. And so really looking at, because they're staying the same, we have action plans in place Like, why is that not working? Why hasn't that bumped up? Is there something we need to address? Do we just need more time to do the things that we put in place? And so we're going to be looking for that feedback in our rollout of our fall 21 scores.
All right, in the parent satisfaction survey, you can see in the fall of 2020, we were at 3.87. Another survey happens in the spring of 21. We bumped up to a 4.06. And then most recently in the fall of 21, we're at a 4.08. So continuing that upward trajectory. And some of the action plans, wins that we came out of the fall were our weekly videos, which I think have some phenomenal stars in them, personally. But this was an opportunity, again, just to highlight our school, highlight people, to also just stay connected with our students and staff. All the information was there. Also, we had positive postcards, emails, phone calls going home, lots of communication with parents, which were a win, our newsletters, which were going home. So we had lots of positive communication that was taking place with our families. And so those were huge wins in that action step.
And then when we looked in the spring, as we finished up our cycle 1 from our parents, we definitely heard that we needed to balance out that communication. They were almost getting too much. Between the district's communication and our weekly communication, they were overwhelmed with that. So we took that as a way to prioritize it. So now our newsletters are prioritized by most important, you must read now, things that some people need to know, and things that are just good information and fun stuff. So we balanced that out, and then also learned that you can never have enough positive. With all the things Trevor talked about, the postcards, the emails, the phone calls, it's still not enough. We just need to continue to do that. So we weave that into everything that we do of how do we add more of that positive communication home. And then for our action steps in cycle 2, in order to do those things that we talked about, we decided to set aside time weekly where teachers have a designated time, 30 minutes every single week, where they can make those positive phone calls, where they can send that email for feedback or enter in information into PowerSchool so parents have more information on their students' learning. And that is a time where we do not schedule any iTeams or anything else. So that is dedicated time for our teachers. So we added that piece just to prioritize what we wanted to do in that positive communication with families.
And then just most recently in our fall 2021 survey, some wins that came out of that. We noticed that lots of parents were saying that there was just these supportive comments from them. And what that means is they recognized that we were working our tails off to get the schools open, to have them clean, safe, so that all kids could be in the schools. And so we appreciated tons of those positive comments. Our top 3 overall had to do with respect and learning. Specifically, parents felt that their families were respected and that they knew that learning was a high priority at Rivermill Elementary. And also from that, there's some learning, some things to look forward to that we can work on. And basically, one of them is focus on what we can control. We know there's lots of things out there and lots of people have different ideas, but we have to stay in our lane. We got to focus on what we feel that we can control in our grasp. And then also, how do we make what we're doing visible? Right? There's a lot of great things that are happening at Rivermill, and some of the parents know about that, but possibly maybe not all. So how can we highlight those awesome, great things that are taking place so that every parent sees that and knows what's taking place there?
Okay, for our student engagement, in the fall last year, we were at a 4.22. In the spring, we jumped up to a 4.27, and then this fall, we jumped up again to a 4.35. So we're pretty excited about the scores and how we've trended up with our students and getting more of their voice. In the fall, a big win. This was, in the middle of comprehensive distance learning, in the middle of hybrid, and some kids were coming to school, some kids weren't. A lot of chaos, but students recognized and reported to us that their teachers cared about them. And that was a huge piece because we know that through this pandemic, the social emotional piece of our students and the trauma that they're experiencing, the most important key point to us was that do they know there's someone in their life and someone at school that cares about them and is there for them if they needed it, and they told them that that's what they felt. And so that was a really huge win and exciting point for us.
And from the spring 21 results, there are some learnings that we found from our first cycle. And the first thing was that data binders needed to be more of a school-wide structure, not just happening in little pockets here and there, but it needed to be system-wide, and it needed to happen in all classrooms. And so some action plans that we made for the second cycle was that we set aside time in the master schedule for weekly goal setting. And that's where teachers are meeting with individual students, all students in their classroom individually, to tackle the goals that those students themselves have set, and then checking in, how are we doing on that? As well as some classes have classroom goals that they're taking place there. The next thing is an academic achievement team. And this is comprised of a staff member from every grade level that they are meeting to create a system at looking at student goals and tracking them, like through our PDSA cycles, because they recognize that they need a system, right? And it's about the system, not the people. And so they're looking at the student goals. We also have continuing our weekly videos, which again I think are great because they star some awesome characters in there. But we've made some change. Now we're being a little bit more specific because we're really keeping the targets of our schools at the forefront. We're making challenges. An example was which bathroom can stay the cleanest, right? And then we're also focusing in the videos on our standards of excellence that are taking place. And then the last thing of an action plan is superheroes. Who doesn't love superheroes, right? Okay. Anyways, most people do. But having these superheroes is a way for us to combat some of those areas. We have like our kindness queen, right? To be able to talk about how we are kind. We have a new one coming on board, which is our friendship fairy. And so again, it's just an opportunity for us to engage our kids, to really draw them in, but yet to be able to tackle some issues that we want to help them to make our school a successful place.
So from our fall student engagement results, our students told us that they believe that learning is important at their school. So that's a huge win for us because that's what they know they're there to do, and we got to hear their voice. We had a lot more students who were able to take our survey this year, so we feel like we captured more of a student voice than we did in the fall. So those are some big key pieces that our students told us. And then what we're going to continue working on is that, students feeling like they're being kind to each other in our school is a continued low area. And we flatlined between fall of 2020, we were at a 3.88, and then this fall we were at a 3.88. And I think no matter what, even if we saw a jump in that, just how we model kindness, how we show that we stand up for people when someone's being unkind to them is something that's a continual effort. And again, like Mr. Searing said, we have our superheroes trying to combat that and make it fun and kid-friendly. But at the same time, we have other pieces we're putting in place, like tomorrow is our Unity Day where everyone's wearing orange to stand up against bullying that's happened. So it's a continual problem that we need to deal with, and our students are telling us that that's an issue too. So we're working on that, but super excited about the jump in our students, what our students are telling us is happening at Rivermill. And I just want to do a big shout out to the Rivermill staff because a lot of these results, most of them are because of what they do every day in the trenches with our kids, loving on them, caring for them, doing whatever it takes for them to be successful. And so I can't thank them enough for all their hard work.
All right. Hello, district leaders and Estacada families. My name is John Simpson. I'm the facility coordinator here for the Estacada School District. I'm going to take my mask off so I can use my glasses. The employee engagement, my strategic action was to communicate team-related issues and district expenditures. Some of the ways I went about doing that was all staff meetings, clear expectations, goals, and accountability for individuals, resources for staff. Some resources included some ride-on auto scrubbers that we purchased recently, lighter floor buffers, push vacuums, all the way down to different colors of regs for different buildings. My action for these were to, oh, I'm sorry, wrong line. So the wins I came out from the engagement was employees responded well to the needs of the district during the height of the pandemic, wildfires, and while still maintaining the quality of service we provide to our district, along with clean and safe buildings. The win through, another win I got through the fall survey was through rounding. I was able to provide essential resources to the team, as I mentioned earlier, in order to perform their tasks more efficiently and effectively, providing a better, clean environment for our district staff and students. Let's see here. From cycle one, some of the things I took out of it was that my team wanted more messaging from me. They wanted more team meetings, along with feedback on their performance. So those are the things that I've been working on to build, make me a better leader. Some of the spring results that I've learned from cycle one was that our teams, team meetings, they wanted the more meetings we had, so I created monthly meetings for all staff, bi-weekly meetings for lead custodial and maintenance crews, along with bi-weekly meetings that they meet with their staff, so that we include everybody in all of our cycles of communication. Everybody has input, and I reach out to everyone after the meetings, let them know what I took from the meeting, make sure we're all on the same page. One of the fall of the 2021 wins that we got was 13 employees completed their survey. So if you look at the employee engagement slide there, in fall of 2020, had a really good score, 4.25. However, only 3 of the 13 staff members participated in that survey. Then we went to spring of 21. It went down a little bit, 4.05, but it went from 3 to 8 employees participating. And then again, you look in fall, took a dive, 3.88. However, every single employee that works in our facilities department took that survey. So there's a huge increase in input, and it's a really good opportunity for me to reach out to more people and learn what I can do to better support our team. The district services was my action plan for the district services was establish clear and concise expectations for staff to perform essential duties and projects. Some of the wins I gathered from the fall action plan is 67 work orders were completed on average per month. We have a limited crew. That's a really large number. On average, 88% of the work orders were completed in 7 days or less. This provides a better teaching learning environment for everyone in our district. We had 28 preventative work orders to date. From last year, I think we had about 16, so staff are putting in more requests, and my staff's getting better at making sure we're doing our preventative maintenance in the district. Some of the takeaways from the spring 2021, from cycle one, I learned a lot about rounding, how important it is to round, not just with leaders, but teachers, support staff, everyone in the building. I noticed that it gets a lot different perspectives on the building conditions, employee needs, and student needs by rounding with a variety of people. That's a takeaway I got from the spring. Also learned that I have some very high performers on my team, and also some not so high performers. So it's a great opportunity to work with those people and coach the ones that need it, and acknowledge the ones that are doing a great job. Several of those people have been moved up through the department because of the rounding and the acknowledgement that's been made about them. And what I learned from the Plan 2 cycle was to celebrate aligned actions and behaviors, empower direct leads to improve performance, makes a better outcome for me, district staff, and stakeholders. And the fall 2021 wins I gathered from the survey were the last school year, we completed over 900 work orders in the 12 months, and our service score went from a 4.62. While that's a decrease in a 0.03, it's still a really high score. I think it's worth celebrating the great work that everyone's doing. And our work orders also went up 28% from last year to this year. So that's a big increase. And again, I think that's empowering other people to submit work requests. People feel comfortable coming to our department if there's a need. And yeah, I think that's a win as well. By providing excellent service and aligned actions, this has been a big win. Let's see. Also, I just want to thank all you guys. Like everyone said up here, it's really a team effort. No one does this alone. It involves everyone to better the district. I've been here for about 11 years, and I'm just really excited to see the direction the district's going. And I'm excited for what spring of 2022 brings me on my survey results. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christina Anderson from Clackamas River.
I'm James Wolf from Clackamas River, and I'm the vice principal.
And I'm the principal. You should probably know that. Today we're talking about some of the things that we've seen at Clackamas River, and just to echo what some of the other principals have said, we first want to thank everybody who's in this room, because without the support that we get, we wouldn't be able to make these measures and this growth. I often tell people that this is the first district that I've really been in where when we see that there's a need, we get that need met quickly. And that not only serves our surveys that we're seeing, but it serves our students, and that's really at the heart of all of this. So to jump into our data that we've been seeing, we can start off with our employee engagement survey results. So we came into last year at a 355, which was lower than what we wanted to see. And we noticed pretty quickly that the trend in our data showed that communication was where our need was. So in order to increase communication, our fall action plan included not only sending out a weekly s'more with a video to our students, but we started sending those out on Sunday night to all of our staff, giving them just an update about what the week was going to look like, what to expect during different meetings, and as much detailed information as we could give at that time. Started sending out the agendas to all of our meetings more than 24 hours in advance so that teachers had a chance to review those, ask any questions, or just know what was coming up so they could feel like they were prepared to come to those meetings. We started sending out an email that was a summary of what we had talked about during leadership, so they could see what decisions were on the board for our leadership team, what direction we were going with them, and just hear the voice of the leaders that were in the school so that they knew that those decisions were coming from teachers who were in similar situations. And then we also started having monthly meetings with our union leadership so that there was a cross communication there. Any concerns that might have been coming up could be handled before they become a bigger issue, and just opening up those lines of communication also. And then we added a time in our staff meetings where we again went over all those district updates. Last year it was a flood of information coming to us, and we were tasked with filtering what would really move forward our district and send the message that our superintendent was caring about our staff and students. So we put that time into our meetings so that they would be able to see that messages were being carried all the way down. What we saw is a really big jump in the spring of 21. So we got way up, we went almost half a point, so plus 0.53. We can attribute that to increased and predictable communication. So on Sunday night, staff knew that they were going to get an email. A lot of our comments from our spring reports said that that communication was really helpful and that they appreciated it. So some of our action plans that came as our communication got better, we saw that we had other needs that we needed to really focus in on. So we looked at decreasing the response time for individual questions. So if we were looking for answers, can we get those answers to our staff within 24 hours? If we can't, can we update them that we are still looking for those answers and their communication hasn't been forgotten? And then diversifying our building leadership. Last year, our leadership came primarily from one side of the building. We wanted to make sure it was a little more balanced and that we had a specialist voice in it. We also added a para-educator to our leadership team so that they had a stronger voice in our meetings. And then we provided time in staff meetings for teachers to teach others. So we added committees to part of our school function. Those committees are then tasked with looking at what our building needs and sending that message out to all. So we have an academic team that is looking at, are we using our data folders appropriately? Do we have PDSAs? If not, how can we coach our teachers from within this committee? We have the same thing with parent outreach, and then also our Fly 5 and responsive classrooms. It's looking at the culture of our school. So with all those things put into place, we were then looking into the fall of 2021, which Mr. Wolf is going to talk about.
So for the wins, we're looking at the trending comments. So the standards of excellence, which we've really been focusing on. And when we talked in August, how are we going to make this a living, I say, creature in our buildings? We've been doing that. It's breathing, it's living in the classrooms, in the hallways, and teachers are living it as well. So when we look at it, it's students are applying the collaboration all together. And we're taking videos and pictures of that and displaying that in our weekly videos. And that's huge because we can actually physically see it. And then our other students, when they're watching the videos, they get to see other students not inside their classrooms, but in other classrooms to see that as well. I'm gonna pull that up. I feel like I'm squatting. So we're highlighting that, and that's a very important piece that we're focusing on. Another piece that we're doing is there's a clear understanding of the goals with Estacada School District and throughout our building as well. We're providing, what we saw too was like providing high expectations. High expectations is rated really high with a little regression. So we looked at all the data from previous times to now, and there's little regression. So we know, like as a building, that we have high expectations for ourselves and our students to meet those goals. What we're learning through this is we have a ton of ways that we communicate, and I think that is something that Estacada and also our building really focuses on. Is what we're trying to find though is what's the right communication for all. So we're looking at those pieces. And then we also found out that this year is rounding needs to start earlier, even before students start walking through the door. We need to start that rounding and working with everybody at that time and figuring out what do people need. That's a huge piece as we start to open the doors for students. So that's our fall 21 results. We are going to jump into parent satisfaction.
So we were happy to see in the fall of 2020, even with students not in our building, that our parent satisfaction scores came back at a 387. Our wins for that was our weekly s'mores and video communications were getting out to families consistently so they could see what we were doing within our building. That was one way we could really promote the safe, clean schools. It was another way that we brought in some of the parts that we wanted to focus on with students and continued that conversation. We were able to give updates to parents and students in that way. And one of our highest points was that families felt respected and valued. So even though they weren't on our campus, they weren't in our schools, we were somehow making a connection with them, even if it was through a computer. So those were some of our big wins from there. With that, our spring results, what we learned from one was that we were on communication overload. So we were hearing from parents, well, I didn't get that message, I didn't hear that. And what they really meant was, you sent so much home that I didn't have time to filter through all of it because it was coming from district, it was coming from us, it was coming from classroom, it was just total overload. So we looked at those systems and made some changes there. And we organized our communication so that if it was coming from us as a school and it was school-wide, we put it in the s'more. We also highlighted it with a color code so that red was, everybody please read this applies to all. Yellow was, this might apply to you, and it'll be noted above. And then green was, this is just for fun. there's something that we've put in here week after week, but we still want it to be available to you. So with that organization, we found that families were much quicker to engage. We also put in action plans for our cycle 2. One of those was data folders. We had heard loud and clear that our families were still struggling to know not maybe what was happening in the school, but specifically to their student. Where are we? Those data folders were something that we this year built into the schedule, because we knew even if we're saying we're doing data folders, but we don't build a time, are we really committing to that? So we gave them a block of time to be doing that during the day so students know exactly what they're working on and can relay that to the parent. We also put weekly updates from teachers that are focused on learning goals into the plan so that they're not just getting information home, but they're getting information that is specific to what their child should be learning. And we are looking at reinstating that PTO. We've got some members on it that are now attending week or monthly meetings to help build a connection between parent and school again and provide an opportunity for them to feel active in our school community. We've increased communication to parents about the current systems we have. So how do you use Canvas? How do you use PowerSchool and Parent Square? And again, we've had some key players in this district who have really helped us out. I know Lexi Hill made several videos for us that we could then get out to parents. Leticia has made videos on how to translate for our s'mores. So we feel like all of our families are getting that communication and have access to it now.
So our fall 21 results, and I hear something very common here, our communication is continuing to increase, which is really important in all areas. So that's gone up for us. In the learnings, what we're finding is parents continue to look for specific feedback and performance. And this is an interesting piece too. So students report that they're being recognized positively, like 4.3, but parents getting that information is 3.9. So we have to figure out how do we get that information to the parents, not just the student. So that's really fun information to look at and to help build some structures and some systems into place to help provide that opportunity.
Okay, and then last, student engagement. So in the fall, we looked at our action plans. One of our big wins, like Trevor said, he was a star in our videos. Those weekly videos got a lot of positive feedback from not only students, but parents. It was really nice to have that piece because when they walked in the school, they'd seen our faces. They knew who we were. So as a new person coming into our building, they could have come in the building in January and had no idea who I was. But because of those videos, they could put a face with the name, which was great. Positive phone calls home. We had over 400 by the end of the year. We have 420 students. So that tells me almost every single parent had a positive phone call home. Some of them were repeated, but not very many. And then just our students in general being active in our buildings in the fall was a big win for us. In spring of 21, what we learned from cycle 1 was that students continued to report low scores in the areas of kindness to each other and goal setting. So 2 of the big reasons why we come to school are for social emotional learning and to be setting learning goals and learning. So we knew we really had to focus in on that and make some gains there. So a couple of action plans that we made is we implemented a schedule change for data folders and goal setting directly with the teacher. So they now have time where a paraprofessional comes in and helps manage classroom and different stations so that they can be meeting directly with the teacher, setting goals that wrap around their SEL, and then also those essential learning standards that they selected as the most important at the beginning of the year. Along with that, we focus on a monthly SEL goal that we decided as a school we would bring together. So every single classroom right now is talking about how they can work together. And then we implemented the Fly 5 curriculum. So we have that now in our classrooms, and students are all working towards common goals that are coming out of that curriculum.
And then our fall 21 results. So the win is that student setting goals is no longer the bottom 2, but what we need to focus on is asking students how do they learn best. So getting student voice into that piece. That's our new focus area. What we're learning with what the learnings are, we're focusing on kindness throughout our whole building. But when we did a pulse survey, students reflected that they are kind, okay? And then when we conducted another survey, they rated that it's not kind in our school or environment. So there's some misalignment there. Everybody's saying that they're kind, but then when we look at our like community and culture, it's not kind. So we have some work to do in those areas. We have been, of course, like the weekly videos, which is a lot of fun, and I think that we have to combine our forces here and maybe put one all together. But what we've been focusing on lately is respect, and we do know that that is a pillar like inside our district, and I think it's our November focus is respect after collaboration. So we have already begun to start to plant the seed into teachers and I say students' minds of what does respect mean. And then we're also having right now, we're starting with, and of course we're continuing to brainstorm how to get student voice. But right now we're highlighting students within our building who are displaying respect, and they get to be in the weekly video and highlighted, and I say rewarded for that.
Okay, thank you. And next up is nutrition services.
Hello, everybody. I'm Julie Theander. I'm the Nutrition Services Director for Estacada School District. So our fall action plan was really focused on intentional staff appreciation. To let you know, back in the fall of 2020, as you all remember, it was pretty wild. We had some new processes that nutrition services needed to learn and change over to from a traditional way of serving children food in the schools. And so we came up with a system of serving food off of bus delivery routes. It went amazing, but it was a process. During that time, what we found, because of all of the changes, staff had difficulties of navigating through all of the different challenges. And so we found that staff appreciation was extremely important. And what that means is how to help the staff understand their contribution to teaching and learning. And so just to share with you, nutrition is extremely important. We need to have those kids wide awake and ready to learn. So to get that information across to the staff, we tried some different methods in meeting trainings. We did some collaborative nutrition team leaders meetings. We developed as a team, not to be directed, but to work together as a team as to how we can focus in on our purpose, our why, of how do we go ahead and contribute to teaching and learning and to support the district as a whole. It was going well. We went ahead and we started out with a 4.04, and in the spring, our results, we went up about 10 points. What we learned from the first cycle is that clear action plans based on employees' voice, it works. It really does. It helps us to focus in on what really counts. Something that we need to work on, though, is proper data collection for action plans. That's still a learning process, to learn just what that data should be to go ahead and know that what you're doing is working. Also in the spring, we decided to go ahead and include monthly SMORE communication. This came from employee requests. They were saying to us, so do the administrators here know what they do in the kitchens? Do they understand what our contribution is? And also, they were asking, hey, what is it that we do, or what do I do in my office? And so that's when we came up with the idea of doing a monthly SMORE. That just started in October, and what happened is I came back to the operations department, and we thought, what a great idea to do it our whole operations department wide. And so our first s'more came out, and so far we've had, we had the statistic on here as to how many, 374 views already on our s'mores, so that's a big win for us. In the fall, we did take a dip. In the fall, there was yet another change, and that change is free for all for meals for children. Now, that is a wonderful thing, and we were excited about it, but we knew that it was going to bring some new barriers and some new challenges. And at that time, what we found is that consistency is really important to go ahead and share, communicate the why. Why are we doing this way? And then also the how. How are we going to do it? But the most important is collecting employee voice. So it is an opportunity now to continue to get that number back up. Okay, so on to our district services. In our fall action plan, the big plan at that time was to start working on collaboration with administrators. Because in the past, nutrition services was always an island unto themselves, not at anybody's fault, it just was. And so it was time to step out of our kitchens and to begin relationships with the leaders of each of the buildings. At that time, we also worked on creating customer service training with our staff to go ahead and improve our relations not only with our customers who are children, but with our customers that are adults. And so again, the cooks were encouraged to get out of the kitchens, become more involved in each of their buildings, get to know their leadership in their buildings and the staff there. So our spring results showed that we had an improvement of 19.19, which is awesome, an upward trend. And what we learned from this is building these relationships with our administrators is vital. What it does is it not only lets the leadership in the buildings know what's going on in nutrition services on a more personal basis, but it also gives the opportunity for those leaders to say, hey, we need help with X, Y, Z. And that is such great information because we want to support each and every building. Also, we are going to be continuing this, or during the spring, we decided to continue that previous action plan, but again, to bring in the monthly s'more. Now, the s'more was created not just for the cooks to know what's going on with the Nutrition Services Department and the rest of the Operations Department, but it's also for all of our building administrators to see just what is it that we're doing in our department. So I encourage you to go ahead and enjoy that. Also, we wanted to go ahead and develop staff training focusing on productivity and to lessen the student time in line. We have some challenges right now with the free-for-all, free meals at breakfast and lunch for students. Lines are longer, and that's a great thing. However, not when the kids need to get back to their classes to learn. And so we're still working on it. It's a continual process, and we're working with each building administrator to go ahead and bring up or learn new systems on how to lessen that wait time in line. Again, I've already shared the wins, that it's awesome, the valuable feedback that we get back from all of you so that we can continue to improve. And also just the other thing that we've been learning is that when we're making our plans for training or any plans with our action plans, they need to be specific. I've been making them too broad. We need to really make them specific, and we need to make make them obtainable and quantifiable. So what that means is data, data, data. We need to know a good way to go ahead and collect that data so that we know that what we're doing is actually beneficial, that it's actually working. Hey, thank you.
Okay, so I'm Mike again. In the spring of 2020, I got the opportunity to oversee technology directly, which was super fun and exciting and a great learning experience for me. And so I'll be presenting a little bit about the fall of 2020 and then hand it over to our IT director, Christy, to take us home. But in employee engagement, some of the wins that we saw within our technology is that their voice, we had a workforce of 2 employees that were serving 1,800 plus students, 250 plus employees, day-to-day operations and one-to-one device management. But their voice was working. It was creating change and allowing them to have input on the decision-making process within the technology department. I gained that information through rounding and different team-building meetings through the fall, and a few different pulse checks that we did in early spring going there. The learnings from Cycle 1 is that more effort, though, even though some of the action plans that I had put in place was focused on collaboration and communication, the effort still needed to be on those areas. It still wasn't quite moving the needle in that engagement area for the IT department. So we still had to refocus and reevaluate how I was supporting the IT department directly prior to a wonderful director coming in. And so I'm going to transition to Christy to talk about what she did in Cycle 2 in the fall.
So I am Christy Cheshire. I am the Director of Technology serving the School District. I wanted to talk about the action plans that were created from the Cycle 2 rollout, and they were created from the rollout. The IT staff actually helped form these, and for me it was all new, and I was very excited, and it was great to get the feedback that they wanted to see happen in our department and district-wide. We created the pillars for, or not pillars, the action plans that were consult with team on ITS expenditures. They work a lot with the technology that's out in the district, and they really wanted to be a part of that process, and so we worked to make that happen. Implement workflow systems. When a lot of work is coming at you, it gets very difficult and stressful, and they were excited to share their voice and express that it was needed as a part of their workflow to have a process of how things are prioritized and gone through. Provide clear and transparent feedback. Clear is kind. Being transparent and helping them understand, helping employees understand what exactly is expected of them. You know, yes, we do come to work. Yes, we do serve students. But what exactly is expected of me? That was very important to the tech department staff. And then, of course, cascading communications. Having a clear and concise, transparent communication that's consistent district-wide is huge, and it's in our department it has become buzzwords, and it's really excellent. So what are our wins? We had some fun wins. One of the ways to cascade communication is that I thought, well, how can we do this fun? And that was through daily stand-up meetings. These minutes are 5 to 15 minutes. I cascade information that's been shared with me, and we also celebrate mini wins that happened that day or the day before. We also help each other with asking the simple question is, what do you need from me today? That worked really well, and it kind of disappeared a little bit during the start of school this year, and it was expressed, hey, when are we going to start doing that again? I said, today, let's go do it right now. Workflow systems and providing a clear path and allow ownership. We have some really excellent workflow systems that they actually help build out and participate in. And cascading communication, shared goals and consistency. I feel like that's a big win in our department itself, because I feel the temperature change in communications, and I think that's super important to make sure that when the door closes, the conversation is staying consistent. What are our learnings through the employee engagement survey? One thing that I've learned is that we can't stay in the comfort of our own home when we have a team meeting. We need to be kind to ourselves as well and find a different location so that we can have conversations and work towards better serving the district. And then also, I think that increased and more clear communication still needs to happen. I think that it's approaching where it should be, but I do believe that it needs to be really focused on harder and more.
Okay, going into district services, again, an opportunity to improve and focus on our service and response to our stakeholders, which are our students, our staff, all of you in this room. We see the numbers here as a fall 20, 3.27, go and move into spring 3.57, and fall 21, 4.31. So we actually saw some great improvement. But prior to the fall, we knew that that was going to need to be a focus. Our average from fall to winter ticket completion was 43. So working with the tech department on how can we be more efficient. Our resources are limited. We have 2 employees. We were still trying to work on getting additional help through internships, but our ticketing system and our approach to effectively and efficiently complete tickets was a priority. We can't have our teachers teach or our leaders lead without good technology, and our students obviously need to be learning, especially during that fall time. So again, moving to winter to spring, we were able to bring up that number to 60 tickets completed on an average. We also wanted to track end user experience through our ticketing system. So much more like you see on a work order system, when you get a completed work order, or you'd get a satisfaction survey. We wanted to mirror that because we knew there was some success. We were able to find opportunities for improvement and celebrating wins, which was a big need within the IT department, celebrating the big wins and highlighting opportunities to win as well, or to improve. So we implemented that service survey going into the winter time to collect the data and to move forward. Some of the learnings from Cycle 1, the ticketing system was still a barrier. Even though we started getting more efficient, the way we used that ticketing system, and mainly for the end user, was a barrier. Communication on workflow, timeline, where the status of your work ticket is, was still a major barrier. And so we needed to still kind of hone in on that issue and focus on what we needed to do. Service, collaboration, accountability was another area that we needed to focus on, making sure, again, that we're serving those in this room, our students, our teachers, the highest ability. And then I'll move it to you.
I didn't put some data points in here, but I am going to share with you some data points because I have the challenge now. Okay, so we did have an increase. I want to say that the biggest piece of that increase is a department that is really choosing to have a service mindset and being empathetic to its users and making sure that everybody understands that their work is a priority. So what were the action plans? I know Mike talked about the ticketing system, and so I'm going to throw some numbers at you. One of the great points about our new ticketing system is our service level agreement that we have set forth inside of our system. And it's sorry, yeah, Vice Principal Wolf had to crouch. I have to jump. Okay, so one of the great things in that is a service level agreement, and that data point shares with us how quickly we respond to people and how long it takes us to actually get the work done. We are we're at 97% on time response, and we are at around 92% at completed within 7 days, and our average closing of the ticket is 2.3 days. That is an excellent data point for us to have, and it helps us set bigger, stronger goals. What are our wins? Oh, I want to talk about foster. I got wrapped up in the ticket system. I want to talk about foster a culture of service mindset and creating trust and confidence. The action plans from cycle 2 also showed us about really developing a strong service mindset, which I already spoke about, but also creating trust and confidence. It is our responsibility to be attentive and create trust in our stakeholder, or from our stakeholders to us. And that is something that we're working strongly towards. What are our wins for the fall 2021 results? We implemented boots on the ground, and that was to eliminate barriers between the ITS department and those that we serve. Having ourselves be in the building, be present, be available, and actually be accountable for every piece of the work that we're involved in. The ticket system also providing some really important data and helping us understand exactly where the pain point is when it comes to the communication barrier that exists and sometimes and still does exist. Learnings. I took away 2 learnings. I'm sure there's a lot more when I get to spend more time diving into it, but my first learning is availability. I really feel like we need to really focus in on availability. Even though boots on the ground is driving change, how do we keep the bar up and have it keep growing? And that is, we're going to have to evolve our availability. And also communication. To have collaborative relationships, you need to communicate, and I do know that that's a barrier, and it is going to be a heavy focus moving into the next oh my goodness, not pillars. I just love that word, pillars. The next leader action plan. Thank you.
We'll bring over the high school real quick. I gotta just do a quick refresh here.
Probably the shortest one in here, so I'm not going to jump or crouch. I am Amy Hudson. I serve as the principal at Estacada High School, and I am the last presentation, I think, today, so maybe. But I do want to just thank the district and Superintendent Carpenter for just having this opportunity. I remember 3 years ago when we started this process and sitting in a room together trying to figure out how all of us worked interdependently towards that common goal, and now we just live it. And it's great to just be able to see and hear everything that everyone's doing. So thank you for that. All right, employee engagement at the high school. You can see we are definitely on an upward trajectory. Super excited and proud of the work that the building and the district as a whole is doing in this area. Our growth from last fall to this fall, 3.95 to a 4.41. And you know, starting a year ago, obviously we've talked about all of the hardships that our district and world were facing at the time and are still working our way through, but just a lot of great learning opportunities through that process. Our fall action plan at the high school included just how our leadership team was communicating with the building as a whole and increasing that two-way communication. We brought rounding to all of our staff, and that has been something that overwhelmingly staff have appreciated. Even today, when I was doing my results rollout for my fall 21 scores with staff this morning before this meeting, rounding came up as one of those always actions that are really appreciated. That clear communication, the what, why, and how, making sure that we use that format to be able to provide more clarity and communication. And then really identifying those we, they moments that were happening, especially at the high school, and being able to redirect and change those behaviors as a whole was definitely part of our plan. And we saw some results from all of those things. You know, we made a really great jump in the spring of 21 with a 0.29 increase. And some of those things that we learned, I talked already about rounding. Rounding was huge, and it's something that all voices continuously say to keep. And then just really a continued focus on building that trusting and honest communication at all levels. So really making sure that the focus wasn't always just the people that live in the high school on a daily basis, but how are we extending that trust and communication and relationship building across the district to different departments and to district office. And so really that focus. So in the spring, there weren't a lot of adjustments. We did adjust some of the evaluation process, continuously trying to improve how evaluators are communicating with employees around performance, both positives and concerns. So working through that. And then, just to highlight again, really proud of the scores that we've been able to produce this fall at a 4.41. And I think more than anything, one of the biggest wins is our lowest score right now is a 4.24 at the high school as far as the principal evaluator area. And so just knowing that we definitely always have work to do, it's an evolving process, but we have a lot of good foundation to be able to build on. And then probably the biggest win in learnings was that score, and I know it was already highlighted earlier in our presentations, but superintendent makes decisions in the best interest of the district with an overall growth of 1.21 in the last year. And really just, and I think it was Principal Hargrave that mentioned it, just the power of alignment. And when we are all working collectively on the same goals and we're using the same language and we have those same values, the impact that has across an organization. So I just think that these scores in particular are really a tribute to that. Okay. I told someone my presentation was only going to be 3.5 minutes, so I'm going to try. Parent satisfaction. This is definitely an area that we need to continue to develop at the high school. A year ago we were looking at a 3.47. I will say one consistent barrier with this data is we're not getting a really good sample size of our families. I know that it's been increasing, the participation has been increasing, and across the district I know that other buildings are getting more, so I look forward to having some conversations to be able to problem solve how to just elicit more parent and family voice in this avenue as well as other options. But a year ago, we were all living in that virtual world, so we tried this thing, parent Zoom meetings on a monthly basis, and oftentimes it was me staring at myself on a screen. But we tried it. We kept going. Every once in a while, there would be like one person who was usually an employee, but I really appreciate that. And then our big focus a year ago was how do we, talk to families? How do we get into their, onto their calendars? And Zoom we found out that was a good fail forward. Also really trying to figure out how to communicate with our families around student learning and Canvas. We really tried to do a push to ensure that families were observers in their students' Canvas accounts. And really a big win was that we figured out what wasn't working. It was a little humbling, but it was definitely a fail forward. So in the spring, even though we did have an increase in scores, a small increase, really truly the biggest learnings at that time was what wasn't working. And so we really kind of pivoted and did an intentional shift after that cycle 1 to really be intentional around our family outreach. And so teachers had the expectation of reaching out to about 10 families a week. And the goal around that was that it wasn't just the negative. Oftentimes the concerning conversations are the ones that we make time for, and we really wanted to be intentional about making time for both the concerning conversations, but also just shouting out the positives that were happening with students. And in just a little over 2 months, teachers made over 1,400 contacts. And so that was tremendous and just a great accomplishment of our staff. And we saw, that did pay off a little bit there in the spring. And then we're hoping that that's what's also contributing a little bit to our fall increase. And so I did mark a couple of wins as I've been able to digest some of the data. Parents are feeling better about the positive feedback that they're receiving from from the high school and just the feedback in general. So I think that is definitely trending in the right direction, and we know that we've hit something that has some promise. So looking forward to being able to work with our families. My goal, and I think maybe it was Hargrave again that mentioned, like, we roll this information out to our students or our parents. Well, it comes from our students and parents, but then we roll it out to staff. So really trying to flip that model, and so taking this back to the parents and saying, hey, here's our data, now tell me about it. So looking forward to hosting a parent meeting on November 2nd to be able to dive into these results and do a complete rollout with our families, and then be able to hear from them what they want and what they think that would help us increase our service to them and their students. Another win from just this fall scores was a lot of recognition to teachers, individual teachers or staff at the high school. And I think that that just speaks to the intentional relationships that our teachers are building with students. And so that's definitely a positive to build on as well. And just our learnings is constant, like how do we communicate what are we communicating and how are we clarifying the information that's coming from the high school to families about what's going on, and especially around student learning. Okay. Student engagement. This is another one where we have struggled with the number of students that participate, and so really getting an accurate sample size and equity of student voice, and so that's a barrier in its own that we need to work through. Last fall, in the midst of comprehensive distance learning, we were at a 3.3. We, in the fall, developed some action plans to, once again, this is a really great fail forward opportunity, but we tried a Ranger Voice, which was a student forum, and we tried it in person and online. So as we were transitioning in and out of whatever instructional model the district was providing, we were trying to create an intentional time and space to be able to hear student voice. And again, that was an opportunity or in a situation where I was sitting in a room fairly by myself or staring at myself on the screen. So again, not a fruitful practice. So the Ranger Voice, we continued to try even as we had more students on campus last spring. And we learned that that wasn't the model that we needed to try. So another input last year from the fall, when we did our fall student engagement scores, because we were in a comprehensive distance learning world at the time, the rollout back to students was virtual. And then, and so the input that we got, it didn't allow for really good dialogue between our students and administration. And so going forward for this year, like knowing that that's a part that we can't just lean on the technology component. But students had asked for more spirit activities and having student council and student leadership. So we kind of made that pivot in the fall. And then looking at, our spring results, obviously I mentioned the fail forward of our Ranger Voice not being the model that was needed. Kind of a wondering too during this time is that lack of school spirit and culture, is that having a direct correlation to the students are respectful to each other at our school? And that's always been a score that we've been struggling to identify possible interventions and action items for. So just kind of wondering if those are correlated. I already talked a little bit about abandoning that Ranger Voice. So when we looked at our spring scores, knowing that wasn't what was working, and then also looking for intentional time, we had a Ranger time option that has been in different models at the high school over the last few years. And so adjusting that, making those adjustments for the start of this year with homeroom and really an advisory model, and then ensuring that we had both student council and student leadership. So a couple of different avenues for students to get involved in leadership at their school. And we're still working on, so those are in place this year, and we're still working through just improving those models. So fall scores that have just come in we are stagnant. I guess it's a positive that we didn't go down. But a couple of wins that I'd like to celebrate is, that one of our highest scoring item in that survey was that learning is important at my school with a 4.03. So that tells me that the messaging and the practices in our classroom are matching that value. And also students felt like they're supported by leadership and staff at the school. So if they had a problem, they knew how to get help or who to go to, and that they have trusted adults in our building. And so that is something that I'm really proud of, and I think it's, again, something really foundational that we can build on. And we have a lot of work to do with the social emotional development and skills of our students, and also just that co-ownership of learning. And then just kind of a problem is the student voice, the equity of student voice. You know, I think we had less than 50% of our students take the survey. So really trying to brainstorm how we get more participation amongst students so that we have more equity of voice and more information to be able to develop our action plan on. That is it.
Fantastic job. And I do just want to say to our leaders today, thank you so much for your just diligent and thoughtful work. Estacada community, if you've had the opportunity to watch this live or are watching it later on in the evening or at a different time, there's some things that I hope that you can see from our 90-day rollout to our community today. The first and foremost thing that I hope that you see is the Estacada School District has talented leaders inside of it. I've been a part of this school district now for just a little over 11 years, and I will tell you in my 11 years here, we together have amassed some of the most talented leaders in our school district that I've seen in the history of this, and you're starting to see the results of a motivated, talented group of people who are working together. I could not be more pleased. And I hope that through this transparent communication from school district to community, that you can see that we take this work very seriously, that we're working hard to make Estacada schools great, all the way down the line from Director of Curriculum Instruction to Building Principal, Vice Principal, and Director of Department Services. You see people who are invested, who care deeply, and who love this school district greatly. It is written in every single presentation that you saw today. We're also trying to, what you can also see is alignment throughout the district, K-12. I challenge you to find another school district where arrows are all facing in the same direction, from finance, district office, building leadership, and department areas and department heads. This is evidence that we're working very hard to accomplish goals together, interdependently, as many principals alluded to in their presentations today. Over the course of the last 12 months, despite the pandemic, despite other challenges, this school district is reporting tremendous wins and tremendous growth inside our school district, something we are extremely proud of. The cool thing about these wins is it's leading to continual growth, growth in our leaders, growth in our employees, which ultimately leads to growth in student outcomes and achievement. And lastly, you saw today a transparent and vulnerable admission that there were some failures that occurred over the last 12 months. But these were not failures in the sense of bad things happened, oh well. They're failures in the sense that we recognize that there were areas that became deficient, and we've learned from those failures, and we have data and feedback that's telling us precisely and exactly what to do with those failures, so that you can rest assured even things that didn't go like we desired will ultimately be improved in the long run because of the work and commitment that these great leaders have as we try to continue to make the Estacada School District a premier school district in the state of Oregon. Now, just to quickly summarize, as I said at the beginning of this presentation today, here is our executive scorecard. Now that you've had the opportunity to see how each leader and each pillar leader has a role and responsibility inside accomplishing this, I thought it would be effective to one more time show you how we did as a whole, one district, in year 3 of our strategic plan. And you can see that by and large, the Estacada School District is on track. to be successful in its 5-year strategic plan. Now we're going to roll out with much detail year 4 in the next coming months as we begin to operationalize new leader action plans based on the data that we reported today. In the sake of time, I'm just going to let folks know that we're going to be posting this on our website, and we're going to be touring around the community to share with all community members what year 4's scorecard looks like. But ultimately, we'll be taking the fall of the 2021 data, and each leader and the entire school district will be building a new 12-month plan where we'll begin conducting our continuously improving cycles for improvement. Very excited about this, and I look forward to working with our great team as we accomplish these next goals as we continue to work towards that strategic plan. The last thing that I do want to share is really talk about what the next 90 days look like for our leaders. And as you can see in this graphic, we're really focused on 4 main priorities. The things that you see in green are going to be the things directly related to the core pillars of our strategic plan. These are the things that we need to implement over the next 90 days that will make the greatest impact inside our school district. Also, there'll be different areas called aggressively develop, and these are the things that we're noticing that are deficiencies and we need to get started sooner rather than later. Establishing a beachhead ultimately means we just need to start. We need to try this thing, we need to get it into the system, and then we need to measure and monitor how it works. And lastly, experiment and explore is really more focused on some things that we'd like to do, some innovation, some technological opportunities that will allow us to have a competitive advantage as we try to improve our systems really throughout the school district. I'm only going to hover on the big aims for this presentation, which is really 5 bullet points. The first big aim over the course of the next 90-day improvement cycle for the Estacada School District is 85% proficiency in essential learning standards. So as we talked about with student success, our school district is really making some great adjustments, in my opinion, to better utilize data to tell our story, make adjustments, and really leverage the support services to meet the needs of each student. The second bullet point talks about continuous improvement cycles and results being visible in the classroom. As we continue to make improvement science more hardwired throughout the entire organization, you today got to see evidence of how this is hardwired from the district all the way down to the building and department levels. We're now starting to spread this continuous improvement work inside the classroom on a daily basis with teachers and with students. I need to pause for a moment to give great recognition to our coaches who are also present in this room today. Our instructional coaches are making a gigantic impact in this work as we cascade what we think is the best improvement work that we can do inside our school districts. From email communications to one-on-one conversations, our instructional improvement coaches are doing fantastic work, and I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your tremendous work in that. So thank you very much. It takes a team to be able to accomplish that, and at the end of the day, if we can get our students to co-own their own learning and their own learning journey, then we in fact have arrived at a true institution where we are the shepherds of learning, not the deliverers of learning. And I can't wait for a day when we can look at that accomplishment. The third bullet point for the next 90 days is to hardwire our standards of excellence across our organization. You saw many times that these behaviors and standards were referred to in our spot. This is our first year of rolling out what right looks like. We want these standards of excellence as we develop a great culture that everybody wants to be a part of. We need those to continue to walk the halls, not just live on the walls. And I'm very excited about our growth in that, and the school district is going to continue to prioritize that work. 2 more to go. We're going to prioritize student engagement action plans. And so again, as you saw, the #1 trend inside our surveys is that we need to really focus and listen to our students in the student engagement survey. I am very excited for our team to come together and listen to our students and build good, targeted strategic action plans that can meet the needs of our kids. We all play a role in that. Every single person inside our organization plays a direct role in that engagement survey. And so it's going to be a lot of fun as an organization to make improvement plans together and depend on each other as we watch that meter grow. And that ultimately should continue to lead to that student-first culture. We want to make sure that the students are the number one thing that we're focused on and their achievement. And so really, as you see here, these top 5 things that the next 90 days look like for our school district ultimately is a continuation of the great things that we're doing, because the data is telling us what we're doing right now is in fact making a positive difference. We don't need to do anything tremendously radical to make major adjustments. We need to keep doing what we know is statistically telling us is working, and we need to make some small tweaks and improvements, yet keep it simple so that we know the adjustments that we are making is in fact going towards its desired intentions. Where we as a district need to continue to improve is looking at the data. What is the data telling us to do? How do we know if what we're doing is making that right change? And so as we build our next leader action plans, as we plan for the next 90 days, we really need to be thinking, how can we keep this simple? How can we keep our measures and our cycles short? And what data are we going to actually look at that's going to determine if what we're doing is making that impact, so that we can pivot quicker if it is not. And so very excited about this opportunity. I'm very excited about our day today, and I'm very proud of this school district as we transparently model what right looks like, as we tell our community just how we're doing in correlation with the strategic plan. So thank you so much for being a part of this day today. I want to thank our community, those who are brave enough to stick with us for the last 90 minutes. And I just encourage our community to continue to participate in their child's educational experience. It takes a village. We are building our systems to incorporate every single person and every single stakeholder in our community to be a part of our school district. So we hope that you'll come along. Thank you very much. And that is our 90-day rollout.